Welcome to our meeting. Today is December 10th, 2013. It is approximately 6:36. Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Mayor Cordova?
Here.
Councilmember Beta?
Here.
Councilmember Peralta?
Here.
Councilmember Silva?
Here.
And Councilmember Landgraf?
Here.
For the record, Councilmember Gonzalez will be coming in. He's coming in a little bit late due to his son having a basketball game. Before we go to the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to welcome county staff and County Commissioner Blankenhorn and county staff here. We have Mr. Mike Trujillo, and we also have Mr. Steve Archuleta, the county manager. So welcome to our meeting. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Silva. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also like to welcome, of course, the Honorable Judge Dicky Chavez here. Welcome. When we go to the approval of the agenda, I would like to entertain from the council to allow Judge Chavez to swear in a new police officer so that he can get right to work. This doesn't require approval from the council, but it'd be nice to witness and accept one of these police officers as one of our own here. So we can have that right after approval of the agenda. Is that okay, council members?
It's fine.
Okay. All right. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. At this time, we'll go to the.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, William North isn't here yet.
He's not here yet? Okay. So if it's okay, Judge, if we can wait for Mr. North to come in, and then we'll suspend the rules at that time, if it's okay with the council. So we'll move to item number 5, approval of the minutes. The meeting minutes, item 5A, meeting minutes of November 12th, regular meeting minutes. Any questions to those minutes as presented?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
None, Mr. Mayor. None, Mr. Mayor. Move for approval.
Second. Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to the meeting minutes of November 18th, special meeting minutes, continuation of the November 12th meeting. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to the Citizens Forum. And I will just go by a show of hands. I know that they've signed up there, but there's no limitation to the Citizens Forum. So, Mr. Northrop, welcome to our meeting, sir.
Thank you. The mayor continues to propagate the myth that I'm some sort of an obsessed stalker of his family. The most recent charge was made on KVOT radio and about an event that supposedly took place at the haunted house in the Walmart parking lot on Halloween. This is the latest mayor and DMC radio's attempt in a fantasy and an attack on my character, supposed character flaws, including that I am an animal abuser, horse drugger, pedophile, and child pornographer. An advertiser on Breakfast with Nancy, and therefore, of course, an erudite community member, has planted in Nancy's mind that I had some sort of nefarious existence when I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada several years ago. The extent of her insights is a rhetorical question. Jeff, someday we'll talk about what you were doing in Las Vegas. The mayor was quoted in the Albuquerque Journal about a week ago stating that the recent state police shooting at a van filled with children would not affect tourism. Visitors are safe in Taos, he claimed. He did not address the issue of drunk driving Taos cop evading police while driving 114 miles an hour, or the corrupted Taos cops allowing vigilante Amos Khan and his cohorts to steal
Mr.
property.
Mr. Northrop, I'm going to stop you right there. Do not use any names. If not, I will.
Okay.
You know the rules of the Citizens Forum.
Well,
Personnel matters and citizens' name thrown around in the chambers
Okay,
the way
well,
you know house.
okay, allowing people and their cohorts to steal property whenever the spirit moves them. Along this line, Elias Montoya, the shooter and now fired state cop, is a good man and a good cop who did a really stupid thing. As much as anything, he became a victim of hysterical media attacks on the one hand, and a failure of District Attorney Donald Gallegos and state police administrators to appreciate the seriousness of the shooting on the other hand. I've often spoken to this body about the natural corruption that must result when elected officials also control media outlets. A somewhat minor but nonetheless disgusting situation is playing out now on DMC broadcasting as radio listeners are assaulted by constant ads with the mayor speaking about local Christmas events, including the lighting of a Christmas tree and the ongoing Saturday event collecting toys for children. While wide promotion of holiday events certainly has my support, the mayor is inappropriately using his voice to further his re-election ambitions. There are dozens of selfless Taos residents who year-round serve our community without pay or recognition. It would be proper for these people to speak to holiday events and not the mayor or his radio toadies, unnamed. The mixture of politics, media, religion, and suffering children for political gains is despicable. Any questions?
Okay. So you have your badges on today. What do they symbolize today?
Same as always. I'm impersonating a policeman, just like you have the Taos Police Force doing.
Okay.
I don't enforce the law, neither do they.
Okay.
But they get paid and I don't.
Next, who else do we have under the Citizens Forum? Sir? Mr. Manzanares, welcome to our meeting, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I appear tonight in two matters. One is a supporter of the last item on the agenda for tonight, consideration as to options with the Mary Medina building. But I'm also have recently become a member of the board of directors for the Taos County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm going to be serving on their governmental relations board. And so whereas you've been used to seeing Brad or Linda here at the meetings, you'll also be seeing myself and possibly Jim Armijo, manager of Smith's. We both have signed up to be interested and follow and be as informed, both getting information from you as well as giving you information from what's happening from the business community in Taos County. So with that, I look forward to attending more meetings, and should any of the council members ever have any concerns, issues, suggestions for the Chamber of Commerce, I think almost all of you know my number. So look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manzanares. Congratulations on your position. I think they picked a very, very wise choice to represent the chamber and the business community, given your knowledge, in-depth knowledge of government and how it works. Thank you. Okay, next under the Citizens Forum. Anyone want to speak next under the Citizens Forum? Sir? Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Philip Alexander Econ, business owner here in Taos. I've addressed a letter to Taos, and I have a few questions and then a short statement. You'll not be able to answer my questions right now, but I'll expect an answer soon. I do have copies of this for the council members. I hope I made enough.
Abigail, do you want to distribute those, please?
But I need one for myself. Okay. My first question, this is about the police department, okay? We all know what happened to me on August 4th, 2012, and I'll get to that in a minute. Okay. The first question is, what are the education requirements of an entry-level officer? And then, why aren't they hired? Second, what are the continuing training requirements? And is this public record? And if so, if not, why not? Are the evaluation reports and all the training public records? What happens when an officer doesn't pass training? A, how soon is retraining applied and how often? B, if training cannot be completed, what then? C, is that termination? 5, what is continuous training that leadership is required, and is that public record? If so, why not? okay? If an incident occurs, as I was told by the DA's office, it is up to the officer making the report to file charges. When a lapel or vehicle video clearly shows violations of the law, including violations made by the officer, isn't this where leadership should advise and make a judgment? 6, what would it take to have a police commission so that there is an oversight, hiring, initial training, continuous training, including continuous leadership training, evaluations and promotions? 7, how long will it take to set up a police commission? How many people will be on the commission? Who will be on the commission? Will it be citizens? Can the police commission be voted by the citizens of Taos? What model will you use? And how will you choose a model? 10, how often are psychological evaluations done with present officers? What are the standards? And is that public record? Also, too, I need to put this in, is question 11. How often are your officers drug tested? What kind of drug tests are they used? Is it urinalysis, blood, or hair? And is that public record? Gentlemen, I think you have your plate full. The town of Taos needs to make a decision and make it soon. As Taos expands, businesses are growing and new businesses are on the horizon. Our leadership and municipal government needs to mature. New steps should be taken to ensure the equality under the law. Whether you are a native Taoseño or someone who just moved here and made a decision to be part of the community. With diverse people moving to Taos from all over the country, we want to make it their home forever. How long? Whether it be seasonal or permanent, people moving from large cities expect a level of professionalism from law enforcement and to be treated fairly. Police are here to enforce the laws, not be a judge. I was recently pulled over in town. Taillights had suddenly stopped working on my vehicle. I was approached at night by a uniformed officer without any identification. When you're pulled over at night, the lights are so bright, you can only see a shadow walking up. I have no idea who it is. And that should not happen. Also, your knowledge, or now knowledge, of what happened to me on August 4, 2012 should speak for itself. The lack of training and respect of some of your officers and leadership should be held to a higher standard. Now, gentlemen, I support law enforcement 100%. It's just a few bad apples that are in the barrel that you need to take care of. All right? Yesterday, this is for you, I filed a lawsuit against the town and the county. If I had another copy, Mr. Archuleta, I'll give you one too, because you're named on it also. Things need to happen. Businesses are coming here. Law enforcement needs oversight, more than just Mr. Weaver here, or Lieutenant Maggio. What happened to me was an atrocity of my constitutional rights, and it needs to be answered. I also would like to know what, we have a new officer, great, I hope so. I hope the hiring standards were leveled up to where he can protect me and my family. Like I said, I'll be there for the guys if they need help, and I support law enforcement 100%. And the thing with Elias Montoya, I served under him in the military. He is a good man. He just made a wrong judgment. But policy is policy, and it needs to be stuck to, and it needs to be set in stone. And that's what needs to happen in our city.
Okay.
That's all I have to say, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Oscar, if you can work with the police chief to get these answers for the gentleman, I think a lot of these are pretty easily answered. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Anyone else under the Citizens Forum like to speak at this time? Sir, welcome to our meeting, sir.
Mayor, fellow council members, I appreciate y'all letting us come in and speak today. My name's Don Peters. I'm the Executive Director of Not Forgotten Outreach. I'd like to change the tone for a second and say thank you. Thank you so much for the support that y'all gave the Veterans Day picnic. The veterans, there was over 700 individuals that showed up to the Veterans Day picnic at the Baton Hall. Next year, invite all of y'all to join us. We hope to have it again if y'all don't give away the building, but that's a different story. So, and as the chaplain of the VFW post, I also support anything and everything that the government of Taos would like to donate to the VFW. So thank you for that offer. One other item. We all know that the Taos Ski Valley is our moneymaker during the winter. I would like to announce that January 24th, 25th, and 26th, the Taos Ski Valley of January, my apologies, has offered to every surviving family member, to every veteran and their family, to every active duty military member and their family, $20 lift tickets. We have to pay the federal fee. That's it. Free rental equipment, $30 lessons. We would like the town of Taos to support once again because we've invited the Wounded Warriors here. They're bringing 50 plus of their individuals here. We also invited TAPS, which is the Tragedy Outreach Program for Survivors, my apologies, acronyms. And we've invited the surviving family members of Taos. The B&Bs have given up rooms. We're going to try to support 40 families coming up here so that they can have room and board, and we'll pay for their lift tickets. So if you'll put that on the agenda, and any and all support that y'all can give to this other wonderful veteran event going on in Taos, we'd greatly appreciate it. Oh, and if you don't know, we have a farming project here in town down at Sunset Park. Come visit the goats that the veterans are using for therapy.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Have a beautiful day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you for coming on. Thank you. Okay, next, anyone else under the Citizens Forum? Seeing none, we will go on to the agenda. And council members, if, since county staff is here, they always accommodate the town, can we move up item 8A and 8B? Oh, the officer's here now? But after the swearing in, can we move item 8A and 8B?
Okay with that, Mr.
Okay. And we do have the officer here?
Yeah, he's,
Okay.
he had the duck when he came in the door.
This time I'd like to have the Honorable Judge Chavez come up to do the official swearing in, and we will welcome our newly recruited officer, Officer North, who's no stranger to the law enforcement agencies, formerly with the State Police, New Mexico State Police. Welcome, sir. And at this time, I'll turn over the podium to Judge Chavez.
Mayor.
Is your family,
Okay.
Mr. Officer North, is your family here? Is your family here? No, Mr. Mayor. Oh, no, they're not here. Oh, okay. They're all back there dressed in black. That's his second family. Okay.
Okay, Officer North. Raise your right hand, please. Repeat after me. I, William North,
I, William North,
having been appointed to Police Officer 3
having been appointed to Police Officer 3
in and for the town of Taos,
in and for the town of Taos,
for the governing body of the town of Taos,
for the governing body of the town of Taos,
on Monday, December the 9th, 2013,
on Monday, December the 9th, 2013,
in Taos County, State of New Mexico,
in Taos County, State of New Mexico,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
the Town of Taos Municipal Code,
the Town of Taos Municipal Code,
and faithfully and impartially discharge
and faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of said office
the duties of said office
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, if you'll sign. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Okay. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And Chief, as the, as now we have probably the smallest officer in the force now, I'm sure we don't have to worry about any cats getting caught up on the trees now anymore, right? Congratulations and welcome, Officer North. It's an honor to have you with our police force. Okay, next we will move the agenda up and we'll go to item 8A. Consideration and possible approval of Resolution 1373, withdrawing from a memorandum of understanding between the Town of Taos, Taos County, and Taos County that was intended to guide the negotiations to reach a new joint powers agreement for consolidated E911 services between the Town of Taos, Taos County, Village of Cuesta, and Village of Taos Key Valley. Oscar.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution that you requested, the council requested that we draw up, just to make clear to the county, our negotiating partners on this issue, where the town stood, and really intending is written here intending to make clear to all parties that while we still harbor the wish of being able to work everything out so that we can continue operating in a consolidated fashion, we just want to make sure that they understand where our negotiating position is, and that is that the MOU, which was a document that was drafted simply to guide negotiations, we don't see it in and of itself as a contract that then confers, among other things, the right for any of the negotiating parties to then take over dispatch services as a substitute for entering into good faith negotiations and entering into a mutually acceptable joint powers agreement. So anyway, we put that in there just to make it really clear. Of course, everyone understanding that we hope negotiations continue and that we ultimately will end up in providing consolidated services together, but so that we don't delay any way in getting to that point somehow by keeping this dream or this expectation that somehow we can forego negotiations and just quickly go into ownership. Anyway, that's the intent of the resolution as we drew it up there for you, Mr. Mayor.
And we do have county representatives here. We'll let them speak as well under this item. Oscar, can you read I know it's a long resolution, but just for the listening audience, can we read into the record the resolution in its entirety?
Mayor, momentarily my iPad is not bringing up that document, so. All right. Sorry. Resolution 1373, a resolution withdrawing from Memorandum of Understanding. Whereas for decades the Town of Taos, the town and the Village of Cuesta, and Taos Key Valley, and Taos County have agreed to be bound by a joint powers agreement regarding the provision of emergency dispatch 911 services to the residents of the county, including the residents of the town and of the villages. And whereas the existing JPA in need of basic and significant revisions to better provide for the emergency services provided under its terms, including but not limited to exercising the unilateral authority of any party to the JPA to control the emergency dispatch center operations and to preserve the JPA to protect all of the residents of Taos County eligibility for ongoing grant funding for emergency dispatch services, also known as Public Safety Answering Point, from the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division, which grants are a return of fees assessed on the residents of Taos County when they pay their monthly telephone bills. And whereas the town, as a fiscal agent pursuant to the JPA, determined to effectuate an earlier decision of the parties to the JPA, directing a relocation of the emergency dispatch center to a larger, safer, more secure facility. And whereas the emergency dispatch facilities were relocated to such a facility in 2013 with a grant from the Department of Finance Administration and Local Government Division. And whereas the discussions about a revised JPA were not proceeding on a path that seemed to the town likely to result in a revised JPA. And whereas to spur those discussions as to a new JPA, the town determined in March 2013 to issue a notice to the participating members of the JPA of the termination of the existing JPA effective 1 year later, March 2014. And whereas the parties had, during efforts subsequent to the March 2013 notice of termination by the town, and throughout 2013 failed to reach an agreement as to a revised JPA. And whereas the town and the county entered into a certain memorandum of understanding, MOU, regarding a revised JPA at a joint meeting of the governing parties of the town and the county on September 24, 2013. And whereas the town perceived the MOU as being in furtherance of the parties' recognition of the need for an amended, restated, and improved joint powers agreement regarding the provision of emergency dispatch 911 service to the residents of the county, including the residents of the town and the villages. And whereas discussions in September and October 2013 between the legal counsel of the town and the county and the villages subsequent to the adoption of the MOU also failed to produce a revised JPA. And whereas, although it is a condition of the MOU that the county and that the town and the county negotiate in good faith toward a revised JPA, the county did not empower the county attorney with any discernible latitude to negotiate the terms of a revised JPA and had to include terms and conditions that were not contemplated in the MOU, and demanded that any revised JPA had to, one, include weighted voting in favor of the county to ensure that the emergency dispatch center would be relocated from its current location at a cost in excess of $1 million, include a provision requiring the breach of an existing lease for the current emergency dispatch center, include budget numbers for the initial 2 years of operation that the county and the town fiscal officers had determined were insufficient to allow for the hiring of a director for the emergency dispatch operation or to provide upgraded training for the dispatchers, and include any provision to hold the current emergency dispatch center harmless from any disruption of their employment and benefits. Whereas the town opted to produce 2 proposed JPAs, agreements both of which incorporated the terms of the MOU in alternative forms. And whereas pursuant to the terms of the MOU, both the town's proposed revised JPA agreements were modeled on the so-called San Juan JPA, and both proposed revised agreements authorized implementation of the MOU. And whereas the town, at the request of the Commission, after adopting both of the proposed revised JPA agreements in the alternative, submitted those 2 proposed revised JPA agreements to the Chairman of the County Commission for the Commission's consideration. And whereas the county has not voted and will not vote on either the proposed JPA agreements submitted to the town, by the town to the county, nor has it offered any counterproposal. And whereas a condition precedent within the MOU has not been and will not be met by the county, to wit, a vote on a revised JPA or offer of amendments or a counter JPA. And whereas the town has determined that the actions of the county have resulted in both a violation of and an abrogation of the MOU, and whereas the MOU has no further utility in the absence of the performance of conditions precedent within the MOU by the county, and whereas the county in the current fiscal year simply refused to pay its entire portion of the DFA-approved budget for the current operation of the emergency dispatch center by something in excess of $86,000 or 11% of the entire budget. And whereas as a result of the county's refusal to provide its full portion of the funding for the ongoing emergency dispatch operations, resulting in the town financially subsidizing the emergency dispatch center with town resources to the benefit of the county's other constituents. And whereas the town has available only finite resources with which to meet its own mandates and obligations and cannot justify subsidizing emergency dispatch services to the other county constituents to the detriment of the town residents. And whereas the county has breached the existing agreement in the following manner, have abandoned the San Juan model, have not negotiated in good faith, have withheld budgeted funds, have not responded to the town's proposed alternative JPAs. And whereas, in reviewing the totality of the circumstances regarding the existing JPA, the guidance of the MOU, and either of the proposed revised JPA agreements, the town can only reasonably conclude that the county's efforts demonstrate bad faith in refusing to negotiate a revised JPA, using the MOU as guidance to arrive at the terms and conditions of a revised JPA. Be it hereby resolved that the town of Taos does hereby withdraw its support of the MOU and will consider the MOU to be of no further force and effect as of December 11, 2013, pursuant to action taken by the Taos County Commission of even date. The MOU between the town and the county is hereby terminated forthwith. Passed, approved, and adopted this 10th day of December, at the regular meeting of the town council.
Okay. Before we get to questions of the council, do you want to hear from the county commission, county staff before? Okay. Commissioner Blankenhorn, you stated you wanted to make some comments?
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if I could have the opportunity to address the council briefly.
Absolutely.
At the end of the next discussion B, it is actually more relevant to
Okay.
that discussion, I believe.
Okay. At your pleasure, just let me know when. Okay. Council members, questions? What is the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Peralta.
if I could, under this same item, as a second to this, I still feel that the council is interested in trying to work some agreement with the county commission to maintain a regional dispatch center. And I would request that the council authorize the manager or the mayor to send a letter to the county commission requesting that they try to come up with a counteroffer to us about what they feel that they would like to see in a dispatch center for consideration by the council, but that no such thing come to us except in written form.
Second that.
Motion for direction to the manager and the second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Silva.
Just real quick. I think that with an issue as important as this, two governing bodies should set aside any personalities, politics. We just need to keep in mind that this is probably the most, one of the most decisions that we'll make as we sit in these seats that we were elected to. There should be no reason why we need to duplicate those services and create another dispatch. So I just hope and encourage the commission and this council to continue to work and try to come up with a resolution. We have no choice in the matter. We must do that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
And Councilmember Silva, I fully agree. I think that we need to get the conversation out of a building and the talks to what is in the best interest of our constituents. Splitting up for logistical reasons just makes absolutely no sense. To have two dispatch facilities when the momentum in anything in government is for consolidated efforts, combining resources so that the constituents get the best bang for the buck. Clearly, both budgets will be affected. Funding will be affected. We won't get funding. Neither party will get funding for upgraded of equipment. So clearly, we need to really look and see how we could come to consensus. This is not hard. This is not rocket science. We've negotiated many things with different governing entities, and I think the town of Taos, the council has shown good faith in providing two alternatives, various alternatives, and I think it's time that we see something back in writing from the commission. That's what we're looking for, something in writing that we can digest and we can look at the options. And simply, I know that was tried and it failed at the commission level to give direction to staff to issue a counter proposal. So, but I think by no means should the talks end. This is something that our core responsibility is public health, safety, and welfare, and this is the core of that responsibility, and that is 911 dispatch services. So I encourage all the parties involved to really roll up their sleeves and see how we can overcome this stalemate, if you will. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Commissioner Blankenhorn, Mr. Manager Archuleta, thank you for coming to our meeting. I think as we've sat back and forth from each other at these meetings for well over the entire term that I've been a counselor now, the one thing I can...
Try 8 years.
I'm on 2.
The same issue that's been going on.
So the one thing I would like to ask, and it's something I've asked over and over again, and I think Commissioner Blankenhorn, you see along the same lines that I do, where the politics should be removed from the equation, and that includes, but not limited to, the weighted voting of either party. And I say that with regards to the fact that if either one of us controls weight on that board, we're going to fall back into the same purview of politics. Now, Mr. Mayor, I wholly support you continuing the dialogue and the direction between the county. My problem is who do we empower you to negotiate with? And the reason I ask that is because Commissioner Chair Baroni has shown the inadequacy to rally his own commission around the issue when this affects every single resident within Taos County. You know, it saddens me when we send proposals back and the only thing we get back from the county is this won't work, this is completely off the table, when all along we negotiated in good faith based on what they asked us to. So, Mr. Mayor, I wholly support working with the county. I'm happy to help and step in any way that I can alongside with regards to that. You know, attending the ICS 400, which is the Incident Command Systems through the Department of Homeland Security, you learn a lot, and you learn just how unprepared this community is in the event of a large catastrophe. And, you know, when we had the natural gas outage, based on that ICS, it was clear that had we not had an emergency response center to rally to, who knows where we would have been. You know, along with that, the ICS creates individuals who are in charge and put to task to lead these natural disasters, to lead these incidents. And yet we can't even agree to disagree, and it's all based around a building. So if we can't even get past step one, how do we create this board of individuals that are the most knowledgeable to make us realize that this community is at risk? Now, I've already taken the pledge, Mr. Mayor, and along with my fellow councilors up here, to completely step back as an elected official with regards to any decision that needs to be made with regards to emergency dispatch. And I ask that the commission, again, take that same pledge with me and allow the individuals that should be seated at that table be seated at that table to work on behalf of us. So, Mr. Mayor, please continue the dialogue, and Commissioner Blankenhorn and Manager Archuleta, thank you again for coming, and I'm happy to sit down with either one of you.
Okay. Just for the listening audience, I want to just, the current joint powers agreement, the main problem that has been going on for years is the town is in control. And that has gotten us into this predicament that the perception is it's the town's way or no way. We want to give up that control. We realize the San Juan model does specifically that. And that is the two proposals that we gave to the county, specifically give up that control in a fashion that politics is out, the professionals are in this board, they make the decisions without regard to the political pressure and such. And that's where the town, but to have weighted voting, I believe, is going to just prolong the problem and kick the can further down the road, and we'll be having the same problem with politics creeping into the dispatch operations. So, any further discussion?
I believe Commissioner Blankenhorn, like a few words.
As long as the discussion has developed to this stage, may I approach?
Sure, Commissioner. And, let me take a vote on this, and then we'll just allow you to discuss, or let me take a vote on the direction to continue negotiating. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Commissioner Blankenhorn.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome
Thank
to our
you all for listening. And I appreciate Commissioner Gonzalez's remarks. The fact is that we are at a stalemate in negotiations on the JPA, and it is because of the weighted voting. I think that has been the sticking point, the composition of the board and the weighted voting. It's never been the county's position that we would have a majority vote, such as is the case currently with the town. But we did believe, and do believe, that since we would be contributing the largest amount, that we would have a slight weighting on our voting on the board. The San Juan model worked fine for San Juan, but there are some differences there. One, they had a dedicated stream of revenue for their operations, and two, they were not fighting over the location. And so really, when you boil it all down, it's about the location. Always has been. That's where the main dispute lies. Now, from the county's perspective, we believe that we are going to need to commit some investment into dispatch. I think that everybody agrees that currently more supervision, more training, and better equipment would improve dispatch for our community. Rather than investing the money into the Kit Carson building, the county would prefer to invest that money in its own building. The current proposal is for the second story above the detention center at the judicial complex. It's a modern building. It's got backup generation. It's got the proper wiring and conduits. It's got good security. We really believe that this is the best option for the community. The county, I believe, we'll see how things progress, but I believe the county is prepared to make the investment in the necessary equipment to bring us up to modern telephony and consoles that would allow our system to be interoperable and compatible with the latest softwares. We would make that investment out of excess gross receipts tax from the construction of the judicial center. We were fortunate to get that in under budget, and therefore we have built up gross receipts tax beyond what is due on the bonds, on the debt. And so we do have that money available. It is, a portion of it is only available for our own property. We feel as though the investment would be made better in our own property than in the Kit Carson Center, because primarily we own it and there would be no rent payments going forward. There would be some additional costs there that would not be incurred at Kit Carson because of the grant money that has already been invested in that building, but we would more than make that up over time in saved rent payments, electricity, utilities, and equally importantly, there are synergies to having it there on campus that would allow us to supervise and train staff more efficiently. We also believe that that space there, that second story space, aside from having better views than the basement, would actually encourage other partners to come in. We believe it is a better space, and we believe that our community's money would be better invested there. And at any time along the way, obviously we hope that the town would join us, because the cost would be significantly lower to both of us if we are able to agree. We could do it under a joint powers agreement. We could do it under a contract for services. I don't believe the negotiations would be difficult at that point once the location was out of the equation. I think that's really been the issue. So we feel as though the Kit Carson building would require $500,000 to get new consoles, to put an antenna next to that building. We would rather spend that money in a building that we own. I believe that this proposal is far superior to the proposal to improve the planning building. I wish it had come up sooner, but it didn't. You know, there were questions about the sheriff's relocation that were unanswered, but we believe we have answered all of those questions, that the sheriff's department would agree to be housed at the planning department, which would open up this 5,000 square foot space that would not require a lease. And we would very much like to partner with the town there, because as has been said by all of us, we know we'd be losing DFA funding. We know that duplicating services would just cost the community too much. And so I know you want something in writing, and that's rightfully so. I'm sure that negotiations will continue. but I just wanted to share with you what I believe is the direction that we're headed, in the hopes that you'll consider it in the future. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner, is this direction to go to now a different place? Because last week, everybody was saying, or 2 weeks ago, everybody was saying that the best option was the planning department building. And I'm not sure what changed that or what study was done to now make a complete shift. Is this, has the commission formally voted on this and to move that way? And this officer that's verbal to, either
Yes.
through contract for services, is this a formal action by the commission that you're empowered to give to us? Or?
No, it most certainly isn't. But it is, I think, a fair assessment of the direction that we're headed.
Sure.
As you know, there was a vote taken some time back that we would pursue our own center because of concerns about the Kit Carson Center, and that we would hope that the town would come along. But this is clearly a better idea. This 5,000 square foot space within a modern building that has all of the redundancies and all of the requirements for a center is clearly a better idea. I wish it had come up sooner, but it didn't. It's never too late for a better idea. And so I do hope that the council considers it, because there is no future for us as a community having two separate centers.
Sure. And I guess and believe me, I don't want to be adversarial with you. There is a sense of frustration on my part because we've done these studies, and a year and a half ago, when all these decisions were made, your staff voted to move to Kit Carson in the stakeholders meeting when they were analyzing all these reports and studies that the town did, and we specifically asked the county, what options do you have? Do you want us, because we're paying for this study by experts, and we want to consider all options. This council had not made a decision where we were going to move, and I wish this would have been one of the options, because we would have certainly had them scrutinize that, and we would have been an informed decision. Now, I don't know who is the one that came up with the idea, which seems that it's a good idea, but from a technical standpoint, do you have a study, or has the county got a study and said, Kit Carson planning building, and now the second story of the new judicial complex, which is the best alternative? And I keep hearing from the county commission or certain commissioners, which I'm glad that, by the way, that you acknowledge that it's all about the location, because that's what we've known what it's all about anyway. But has there been a conclusive study that says, because we hear all these concerns about Kit Carson, and we've addressed those concerns, but is there a conclusive study that says this is why the planning department building is better, this is why the upstairs is better, and this is the matrix that shows why all the parties should move? We haven't seen that, and we have produced that. When we moved to the Kit Carson facility, the only thing we got from the county was the armory, that's the one that they considered us to use. And of course, we saw the matrix that had, and the remodeling of our existing facility in Kit Carson. And that's why this council made the decision to move to Kit Carson, because of that matrix and the multiple studies that we did. So is there a study that we could look at to consider that?
Well, I agree that the history of this relocating 911 dispatch has been tortured and unfortunate, but there is nothing that we can do to change any of the history. We haven't contracted out for an expert study, but you can get different answers from different expert studies. But we have, staff has done a lot of work and brought in a lot of people to tour the second story. We were there today, Councilman Peralta and Deputy Manager Adami joined us there, and we have had very positive feedback from other potential stakeholders. There was the representative from Santa Fe also came up, who was in charge of dispatch at Santa Fe, and he was very impressed with the overall plan. I don't think that anybody is going to find a real fault in that square footage. It's a modern building, and initially, there was talk of that being the dispatch center. I don't know how that got passed over. I don't know how it got changed. But if you go up there, you'll see on one of the doors it actually says dispatch. So at some point, somebody had considered it and studied it along those lines. I really don't think you can find fault in that location.
And I'm not.
And I know you're not
questioning
trying to, but I'm just trying to answer your question.
Yeah, just that this council, when the idea of Kit Carson finally started coming to light and we received the legislative grant to build it, to design it, the federal dollars to build it, it took this council probably 6 years, since 2006. So that's, 7 years to make an informed decision about where we're finally going to move. And study after study, when Councilmember Gonzalez and Peralta moved in, they promised their constituents yet another study to make sure we were making it fully informed. So it does concern me that in a matter of 2 weeks, we're looking at this building and now this other building, and we're kind of in the sidelines here, wondering, well, what's driving these decisions? So, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Mr. Blankenhorn, with regards to the jail and this being an upstairs facility above the jail, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Have all the logistics been thought through of what an incident command center should be and what it should do? Who on the commission has taken the steps? Now, I'll toot my horn a little bit because I was one that took the proactive step to sit in on ICS and what it meant to a community. Now, what it comes down to is in the event of a catastrophe, an event of a disaster, regardless of what that disaster may be, the ICS serves as a hub that is controlled. So let's just say some reason there's a water shortage and National Guard brings in water. Where do we store that on a second level building? Where do we store the individuals that are responding 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 weeks? Where do those people stay? This goes beyond just a call center.
Yes, it does.
So, when we built the Kit Carson Center, when the architect took a look and looked at specs for that, it was built within the ramifications of what Homeland Security deemed as safe. Now, again, the one thing I brought up to the Department of Homeland Security was saying, okay, well, we get criticized that we don't have the bomb-proof glass. Now, the one question that was given back, do you sit in a hurricane area where there would be flying debris and objects flying at your glass? No. Do you guys have some type of target within your organization that would warrant a large terrorist disaster? No. So the bomb-proof glass, while yes, it is part of Department of Homeland Security's architectural plan, it's deemed within areas that it sees fit. Now, so again, I ask, this thing's sitting 2 stories above a jail, which, not to criticize the county with regards to jail, but we've seen what's happened with inmate releases in the event of something major happening. Now we compromise emergency communications. There's a lot of things that, we put to task when we did our studies to put through to that. And I look at it with terms of, okay, let's say we do have another natural gas outage. The city and the county partner together to team up and bring in heaters for individuals. Is there sufficient space there? Is there sufficient security there? Yes. That those heaters don't get raped from us and endanger lives of individuals because we are non-secure now? There's a lot of variables in there that, I think to you guys as a commission need to do due diligence to your constituents. If that's a route you're seriously looking at taking, that you weigh every single option, because this goes beyond the individuals that sit behind the desk, answering emergency calls. This emergency dispatch center was set up by the Department of Homeland Security so that it was a secure facility in all events. Not just a call center.
Those are all excellent questions, and I have been present to listen to conversations regarding just those points. And our county manager, Mr. Archuleta, is much more knows much more about the particulars. But we have had those discussions about the necessary security, about the fact that if we have another incident like we did. I think there's been several over the past few years with fires and the gas outage, that we would have the commission chambers with all of the screens available. Again, I am just an elected official. I don't have the 40 hours per week that staff has, and so Mr. Archuleta has more of the particular details on why we believe it could serve the community well, for more than just a dispatch center. But, you know, all of the points you bring up are valid. They have been discussed, they have been vetted, and we do believe that the judicial center complex as a whole, with all of the assets there, would serve our needs.
Mr. Mayor, and if I could, Commissioner, you know, the one thing I would encourage you guys to do, because it's free other than getting yourself there, is to take the ICS courses. It's free to elected officials. And I would suggest that every single one of your commissioners step up and take that class, because there's so much that you'll learn, even the wrongs that you're doing within your own community, that when it affects lives, when lives get put on the line, you know, do I sit comfortable today knowing the things I know? I don't. But I think we can get there.
Well, we all know that we need some improvement, and we're trying to move in that direction.
And I think, you know, we'll get to along those lines, I just would hope that the commission, this isn't the fire we need to put out tomorrow. You know, this council is not going to, we're not here to say we're done working with the county. Clearly, when you put financial common sense to it, and the logistics on what it will take to create 2 dispatch centers. Okay, well, I'm on this side of the road. Well, no, you have to call that number. The logistical nightmare. I just would hope that the county takes a step back, because right now we have a serious issue that the county is only funding $288,000 and the town is funding $371,000. We need to fix that, because it's not fair that, you know, we can document where all this money is going. But I believe that we need to address that issue and do the best we can now under this current JPA to provide the best 911 services. I think what needs to happen is the commission needs to give this current location a fair shot and thoroughly analyze where they're going with if they deem that the upstairs is the right thing, because your budget is going to go from 371, from what I've heard, to almost $1 million of annual reoccurring. You know, to run dispatch. That's what I'm hearing, you know, that it's going to significantly double. So what is the rush when you're getting it for this amount now? Let's not rush into it. It's obvious that last week we were looking at the planning building. This week we're looking at this other alternative. Let's take a step back. If we need to look at what our budget is now under this current JPA, and let's let the dust settle, and you know, let's not focus on this building is better than this building, and because that's where rash decisions are going to be made, and I believe it's going to be to the detriment of the taxpayer having to duplicate services.
Yeah, I agree, Mayor. We do have to be deliberate about this, and you know, obviously there's not going to be a dispatch center ready to go anytime in the next few months, and so we are going to have to continue to live with the situation that we have now. As to the annual budget, the $1 million a year included a long-term lease on the equipment, which we are not going to pursue because there isn't a dedicated source of revenue that would be required in order to enter into that lease. And so we would cash out whatever contract we entered into to purchase the telephony and the new consoles. The new consoles are a big key here, and they're very expensive. And so it's just not possible at the moment to find sufficient support in the county to invest the $500,000 in the Kit Carson building. That's a reality, and so we are looking at taking those steps gradually, knowing that we all agree that current dispatch requires some improvement in both equipment and training and supervision, and knowing that we have to eventually do it together.
And just know that the town is fully on board with, we need to get to that next latest and greatest, not to say that our equipment is anywhere jeopardizing public health, safety, and welfare. But we want to keep up with the times, and we want to have those capital improvements. The first step was getting out of the rat hole that we were in that simply would not lend itself for such expansion and more adequate dispatchers and so forth. So this was the first step that we're taking, and of course we're going to put all those bells and whistles that the county is looking at now. Of course, those are part of our overall ICIP plan. So partnering up definitely is what makes sense. You know, I think the conversation just needs to really get out of the building, let the dust settle, and perhaps emotions will calm down and common sense will prevail, hopefully.
But, you know, the point is you do need that capital investment in the consoles in order to take advantage of the new software. And
Sure.
the new software is really where it's at. That's where, you know, individual cars and fire trucks can be pinpointed
Absolutely.
and have access to all of the same information.
Absolutely.
It's where we need to go for the safety of our community. And there's really only one way to get that, and that's to make the initial investment.
Absolutely. Councilmember Abeyta.
Thank you, Mayor Cordova. Commissioner Blankenhorn, thank you very much. Manager Archuleta, now Assistant Manager, thanks for coming in. Tom, I think you said it best when you said that it's all about the location. The current Emergency Operations Center at its current location in Gustorf Road was in the make 7, 8, 9 years ago. Governing bodies before us were part of it. Governing bodies at the County Commission before you were part of it. And we went down this road and we studied it and we studied it. And collectively, we made a decision to go down this road. And now, because this building, even though you're calling it location, let's call it what it is. It's because it's owned by Kit Carson, and it's because Luis Reyes is the CEO of Kit Carson, that certain commissioners refuse to be in this building. Let's just cut right to the chase, peel that onion back 5 layers, and look at it, and that's what it's about. And it's really a sad day in Taos that we're allowing politics to compromise the public safety and welfare of our people. The command center that we have today is robust, it's survivable, it's redundant, it's an excellent solution. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Does it have room for modification, for upgrade? Absolutely yes. But it's the best thing we've had in the last 30 or 40 years. Now at the 11th hour, because of political reasons, at the 11th hour, certain commissioners were looking at the planning department building. Now, in the last week and a half to 2 weeks, they're looking at the upstairs portion of the new jailhouse. That area was designed for the sheriff's department. Now we're going to move the sheriff's department to the old planning department building that we have to spend money to retrofit. That is everybody's taxpayer dollar. It's not county money, it's not town money, it's the taxpayers' dollars. Why are we doing this? Let's work together, let's collaborate, let's get past the politics, and let's move forward, folks. Why are we making this about the building? There's nothing wrong with that building. It's all about the fact that it's Kit Carson and it's Luis Reyes, and it's really sad, folks. Commissioner Blankenhorn and Chairman Baroni, I commend you guys. You two commissioners have worked extremely hard to try to go down this road. It's just that politics haven't given you the third vote that you need. And for that, I'm sorry.
Well, Councilman Abeyta, you know, I'll agree with you on the fact that the history has been regrettable, that the decisions that have been made, the way this has all progressed, I think we would all prefer that it had gone down a different road. But I'll respectfully disagree with you on the premise that this is only about Luis Reyes or Kit Carson. Honestly, the county is looking at a major investment in equipment that will allow us to go to the next level that we all know we want to get to. And we believe that it's in the taxpayers' best interest to make that investment on campus within the Judicial Center, because we have that space available. The sheriff actually prefers to move to the planning building, and the costs of upgrading that planning building for the sheriff's purposes are minimal. So, you know, really, there are advantages. There are advantages to going upstairs.
And Commissioner, I respect what you're saying, but the town of Taos and the county and all the entities have studied this for 7 or 8 years, study after study, feasibility after feasibility study. You guys don't have one single study on this new idea yet. So it needs to be studied. We just can't make a rash decision.
I agree, and certainly nobody's asking for a decision here this evening, but I think it's useful for us to have this conversation so that we can get a sense of at least the direction that the county is looking at and how we hope that the town will be part of those plans. and the history is what it is. You know, I have to keep focusing on where we're going from here.
Okay. Councilmember Peralta. Okay, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Tom, you know, the one thing we've heard over and over is the latest and greatest. You know, new dispatch software, text to 911. These are all, you know, stuff that's been filtered around the media a lot. Now, again, back to the trainings. Have you guys, other than Motorola, has anybody told you that this is even possible for Taos? Because if the powers that be, which is the Verizon Wireless of the world, the T-Mobiles of the world, have not invested in the infrastructure here, then you have a council that will accept it, but it could be inundated 5 or 6 years now by the time something else comes forward. So, and I say that with regards to Arroyo Hondo barely got cell service, you know, less than a year ago. So now we're talking about implementing equipment that, well, it's more than capable. Verizon, T-Mobile, any of these guys haven't made the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment because they don't see the, you know, the usage in lines needing to be here. I mean, in talking with these guys, Phoenix, and you know the mass size, sheer mass size of Phoenix, barely got text to 911. And now it'll start to trickle to their outline areas, but I don't even see a major metropolitan area close to us that has the capacity of a Phoenix, that has the ability to do this. Now there's implementation underway where, you know, hopefully Congress and Senate will require this of cell carriers, but at this point it's free for all. It's at their will. So, I mean, while the equipment sounds great, everybody'd love to have brand new equipment. I mean, what does it do for us if it's non-existent here?
The technology is always evolving, and I know that there are concerns in the PSAP community that actually a lower and lower percentage of calls are able to be locatable because of exactly what you're describing, insufficiencies in the wireless capabilities. But aside from that, there are still major advantages to having modern consoles that can adapt to modern software. That remains a problem. You know, heaven knows how that'll be fixed going forward. But in the interim, there are still significant advantages to having the new equipment.
And before we get to Councilmember Peralta, on that note, you keep mentioning the councils, and I can't fathom what's wrong with the Kit Carson building that county can't partner up, and then we share that cost in the new councils in the Kit Carson building. I mean, you guys were going to put it in a modular building that was going to be retrofitted. So I can't understand how that was good enough, but yet the Kit Carson building is not good enough. So, and then the concern I have with the do you have redundant electrical grid service at the courthouse?
Yes. Yes, we do.
I was told that it wasn't redundant there, that they would have to install that to the tune of $300 and some thousand. So I guess those are some of the concerns that I have there.
Those are all very good questions, but we do have the electrical redundancy at the courthouse. We did not have it at the planning department.
Yeah, okay.
That's where those numbers came up.
Okay. Councilmember Peralta.
Commissioner Blankenhorn. I guess, we're having discussions, and, we talked about this today a little bit, in the sense that the discussions are discussions, and it's not getting us anywhere, really. I think that we all agree, we all have the same philosophical understanding of what we want to be and where we want to go. And I think we understand that it's in the best interest of everyone to come together and do this as a organization that is united. But I guess the problem that we're having is still one of communications, in a sense, that we're not getting things in a format that is able to be digested in a way that is intellectual, in a sense. And this is something that I feel that we need to get to. And that's why I'm saying is that if the county has an idea of where they would like to partner with the town and the villages and anyone else out there, that we need to have that in a black and white document for us to digest, in a sense to say, okay, this word works, but this one doesn't, or whatever it might be, or maybe all of it works. But to this point, it's really hard for us on this side to try to make a decision or try to come to an agreement when we don't exactly know what the county is talking about. Our proposals in the JPA were ones to try to get some feedback on our proposal, in the sense that we were trying to put to words the MOU, and that's what we tried to do. And as I said in the commission meeting, is that it's not black and white, it's not in concrete. We need to have a response to this, because we don't know how far off we are with the understanding that we had in our initial discussions. And that's where we need to get. We need to get to a point where we feel like there is something for us to digest in a format that we can understand. And conversations aren't getting us there. And that's why I'm saying is that we need to do that, and we tried to do that one way, going in the direction that we did. But we would like to have the same sort of response so that we can digest it the same way. And under the thoughts that the county has right now about the location and the investment that they want to do and that sort of thing, we need to see from the county what they think how the town can participate in that in a way that we feel that we are truly partners. And this is, from a county's understanding of this, not from our understanding, because we don't quite understand what that is at this point. So this is what we would like to see in order for us to say that we will respond to that, and we will respond as quickly as we possibly can. And I look at it from the standpoint of saying this council wants to respond as quickly as possible. But we've got to have something to respond to, and this is what we're asking for. We want to continue this. We want to see if there is some way that we can come to an agreement. We don't want a separation. All families have fights. But it shouldn't be one that causes us to dissolve ourselves. I think that this is not one of those issues. I think that we have a responsibility to understand each other and come to an agreement that is in the best interest of our constituency, and it's the same constituency. We're all county residents, and some of us have an additional hat, and that is town residents. But still, we're all from the same community, and we need to work together to make that happen. And so this is all I'm asking. And one of the things about the equipment doesn't care where it's at. We, as government entities, I guess, are more concerned about where it's going to be than the equipment. It don't care. It'll work just as fine if we put it in the basement or if we put it on a rooftop. So that's really can't be the issue as much as what has to be the issue is how can we work together, and what is the reasoning behind what we're going to do.
I agree with everything you said, Councilman, and I would just say that the equipment clearly does not care where it is, but the fact that we have an opportunity to put it in a functioning building that we own and don't have to pay rent on is an issue, as is its proximity to the rest of our assets right there at the Judicial Center. So those are the main reasons why we prefer, if we're going to make that investment, to put those consoles in that building. But aside from that, I totally understand your position. As a commissioner, I will certainly do everything I can to find consensus, to direct staff to provide this council with something more concrete than just discussions. You're absolutely right.
On those lines there, I know that we must also talk about where we go moving forward. I agree with all the members of the council. We should not split up. This is something where we have to partner up. And this thing of us and them, we are the county. We are District 1. And we need to know what the county is going to do because of the way the technology of the way cellular phone service works. that cellular may be actually getting service from a county tower, and they may be wanting to call, or vice versa. And what is the plan, the plan that's going to be in place on how we're going to partner up? Because whether you go and create your own dispatch or not, we have to partner up to protect our citizens. And what study has been done? I'm curious to see what is going to be our role with the county to address some of these concerns. And because from a logistical and technical standpoint, it's going to be a nightmare. It just doesn't make sense. But you have your policymakers, and they're empowered to make those policy decisions. And we want to know those things, because at the end of the day, it is going to cost some. It's going to be to the detriment of a good quality 911 service. So I think we need to know that, and then moving forward, during the interim, if it's the county's desire, which I hope the county steps back and partners up with the town in some way, whether the county becomes a fiscal agent as the Joint Powers Agreement says that they can exercise. I think we need to address the shortfall in funding that the county has put us in. That we're paying $371 and the county is paying $288. Has traditionally been the case since 90-something, or, that's severely underfunded, and that's what prompted a lot of these discussions. Is we need to spend more on 911 services than we have. The turnaround, the wages, the executive director, the costs of just running the operation. And it was agreed by all the stakeholders that this was going to be the budget. We submitted it to DFA. DFA approved it. You submitted a higher amount, but for some reason we got a lower amount because it was claimed that it was going to be contingent on a new JPA. So right now we have a serious issue that we're underfunded, and it's due to the county not paying what we submitted to your board as the proposed budget. So at some point we're going to have to cut back in services, and that's the last thing we want to do is cut back on services for 911. We just can't. So we need to really look at what the reality is today and what the funding requirements are and step to that plate, because here we're talking about millions of dollars and we're talking 371 in its current state. If there's heartburn on paying 371, surely there's going to be a struggle to pay $1.1 million or more for a reoccurring budget. So we need to address that issue, and I think there's going to be probably some talks, that we seriously need to address that, because there is a shortfall in our budget because of that.
Well, I understand that, and it's been a long-standing issue, really. We all know that our operations for at least a decade could have been made much better with supervision and training.
Sure.
Supervision and training is such a huge part of it. It's not something that we've been able to afford for a decade now because of the arrangement that we've had. Sure. And so we all know we have to make a change.
But I hope you realize that it's not fair to town residents subsidizing a greater portion when we account for 5,000 people, the county of 35,000 plus, or there and abouts, and 5,000 residents are paying 371 versus the county 288. I hope you realize, as representatives of my constituents, it's a hard thing for them to digest that they're subsidizing the county.
I understand that, and I hope that you will take a good hard look at whatever proposal we come up with, which will include both an investment in the equipment, the hiring of a supervisor, and the training of staff, because we know that these are the key issues, including a tower right next to the building.
So will we be getting a proposal from the county?
Well, we're moving hopefully in that direction.
That motion died, and I credit you because you made that motion to direct staff to negotiate or to give us a counter proposal, and that died. So I'm just wondering, what is the majority? Does the majority of the commissioners want to even submit a proposal? Where do we stand?
Everybody understands that the two things we need are to improve our operations and to work together. And I fully believe that the dialogue will continue, and that we'll make progress.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor Cordova. One final comment, Commissioner Blankenhorn. You said earlier that it's about the building, about the location. And then now you said it's about placing the dispatch center in a building that we own, because we're going to make those long-term investments that are needed. Well, if I look at the current location on Gustorf, that building is owned by Kit Carson. Kit Carson is owned by us, the people that subscribe to electricity, so it's our building. So maybe, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Blankenhorn, maybe down the road we ought to go with a proposal to Kit Carson Electric that once the debt service is paid off on that building, there's no lease cost. And in essence, it's your building and you're not paying no rent.
I believe that is the
Yeah,
arrangement. Yeah.
That is the arrangement. I had heard that there was some difficulty because you have to have a dedicated source of revenue to do the long-term lease. But in any event, it's still a 30-year lease at $33 a year. It's $1 million, and that's $1 million that taxpayers have already spent.
840.
But do you see what, Commissioner Blankenhorn, do you see what you're saying, though? You're saying that we want it in our building. But in essence, this is our building. And if it's the issue of the rent, let's find a solution to that.
And all we're doing is
It's already
paying-
in the right building. That's why we worked 7 or 8 years to put it there. It's in the right building. The upgrades, the equipment, the software, the operating systems will have to be continuously upgraded through the years. That's just the way evolution of technology has taken us. But to say that it has to be in the county building doesn't hold no water at all. Zero.
Does eliminate the rental costs, and there are synergies.
But Commissioner, would you agree with me that if we really work hard and we roll up our sleeves, we can find a way to mitigate that with the current location?
I would say that rolling up our sleeves wouldn't do it.
Yes, I guess that's where we. I guess that's where
we are stuck in a position where we have two governing bodies that have a different idea about the location. And you know, it was played out in the composition of the board, but really there was not sufficient trust on either side to agree to composition of the board because of the fear of the decision of the location. I mean, I think that that's really...
So was it the fear that the county commission was concerned that the proposed board of 7 members was going to vote to leave it where it's at instead of move it to a county building? I mean, let the first responders, the technical experts, let them make that decision. Why should we, as elected officials, make that decision? Every member of this entity, of this proposed JPA, every single member, including Taos, Valley, and Cuesta, should have one equal vote. Mm-hmm. Why should the county have weighted voting? Why should the county get 3 votes and Taos Valley only 1? Give every person 1, just like the San Juan model. Everybody should be treated equally.
Well, all that works fine if you have the budget, but as it turns out, Taos County has the funding available to make the investment, and that's why we are choosing to make that
So
investment.
if you have the funding to make the investment, why are we getting short at $83,000 a year right now?
The operational costs have always been $288. I wasn't privy to any of those discussions.
Yeah, and I know it's an unfair question, but rhetorically. Thank you, Commissioner.
Not unfair.
I appreciate your time.
How much to this new location now? Do you guys know how much it'll cost buying the new PSAP, new councils? If you guys go on your own completely, what is the difference? Okay, we're arguing about $33,000 a year.
Right.
Our lease to purchase payment. What is it going to cost the county to the whole expenditure, including the equipment, councils, notwithstanding the reoccurring budget that they're going to have to pay? Do you have a guesstimate on that?
Yeah, $800,000 or $900,000. But the only savings between the 2 buildings is the amount of the value of the state grant. And I think that there's some of that equipment that could actually be used still. So you're talking about maybe $200,000 less to make the investment in the building that we don't own and have to pay rent on. And so in the long term, we get that money back in saved rent payments.
But you're saying it'll cost about $1 million, and you'll get that money back. But at $33,000,
not the whole million. The only portion we have to get back is the value of the state grant that was installed at the Kit Carson building to make it apples and apples.
So So 30, and then your reoccurring costs are not going to be 371. They're going to be closer to $900,000 probably.
If we're separate, the recurring costs for both entities is going to be more than we can afford.
So we're looking at maybe $400,000 more.
Yes, yes.
Than now, and we're looking at $33,000 as the stumbling block. And you're going to spend $800,000 or $900,000 in new equipment that comes from somewhere. That could be go to roads. It could go to subsidize the library. It could go to subsidize so many services that are desperately needed by the county residents. And we're duplicating services because there's a stickler for $33,000 a year.
No, but the $900,000 investment moves us, makes the new location a much better location with an extra $500,000 worth of equipment. That's the point. You know, we feel as though, based on what we've learned, that in order to take the next step to be able to utilize modern software, there's going to have to be a $500,000 investment somewhere. We're willing to increase that from $500,000 to $8 million if we can do it on campus in our own building and save the rent.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Blankenhorn, I applaud you. You're very courageous to sit up here and just deal with this, because it's not easy. I would actually like to be sitting across the entire commission, this council and the entire commission. I think we could have hammered this thing out. We really could have. I've just a couple of comments. You know, while we may be at odds and look at things a little differently, the two common things that we have, and you said this, that the commission knows that we need to be working together, number one. The other thing is improving dispatch, and we wholeheartedly agree. That's the common ground right there, it seems like to me. And a commission and a council back some 12 years ago had that same idea, had that same commonality. They knew that they had to do something in the aftermath of 9/11. And I've heard, you know, some numbers out here of 8 or 9 years, and actually we're going on 12 years. And the stakeholders all came together. The commission, the town, the county, the Ski Valley, who knows who else, you know, the Cuesta. They all recognized the need for the improvement of a dispatch and the construction of a regional command center, if in the event something catastrophic would happen to our community. And so we have some common ground. Those folks, those commissioners and those councilmen back then, the people that we elected back then, agreed to move forward together, okay? And who are we to dishonor them, to disrespect them? You know, a community is built on decisions made by people a little at a time. It's not built overnight. And these discussions started way back then for the betterment of our community. Somebody had the vision and the foresight to recognize that back then we needed to improve our dispatch. Back then, our dispatch was still where it was up until a few months ago on Armory Street or Civic Plaza Drive. It is in a better place now, thanks to those folks, thanks to those commissioners and those councilmen. And I really wish that, and a lot of times through this process, my own decision making, I took that into play, because who am I to dishonor and disrespect all these people who had this foresight to put their community in a better place. And I would like and would ask that you take this back to the commission and just share that with them and reflect on how we got here. I think that at some point or another, the county nor the town had the funding or was able to apply for funding for one reason or another. Kit Carson stepped up and said, well, we can do it through the rural electric side. That's how we can secure the funding. The commissioners and the council said, good idea. So be it. And that's how it came to be about. So just to kind of shed a little light on some of the folks, for some of the folks that didn't know how this came to be about, that's how we got to have that command center, and that's why the town of Taos is in the command center, and that's why I supported the town's position in moving into that command center. A few people out in the community, and I believe Councilman Abeta said it earlier, a few people out in the community, for whatever reason, have their dislikes, and that being Kit Carson and maybe their CEO. Well, that's just too bad. We're moving forward, and we have to move forward, and we have to continue to work together as a community, one community, and that's how we will overcome and accomplish things together and build our community together, and we can't forget that. So if you would, please, just take that message back to the commission, and just remember all those people who put all that hard work into making that project become fruition, and I believe it's a good facility, and it shouldn't be about the building. It's about the people of this community, and they will be in a better place for that building or that project. And again, thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Councilman, and I will.
Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Blankenhorn, I just want to thank you also for all of our dialogue off. I mean, we've probably spent hours on the phone.
I know my phone bill's going up. I'm going to have to change my plan.
And I certainly appreciate your willingness to keep the dialogue open, and also Steve as well, the members of the staff of the county as well. So, this is going to be a tough decision because at the end of the day, it falls in the hands of the county commissioners and majority sometimes. I know you have a split commission on a lot of these issues, as specifically the 911, and hope we could come to some consensus. But please, I think the message that we need to discuss from a management standpoint is the shortfall that we're facing and where do we go from there. I mean, we simply can't shut our eye to the fact that 911 is underfunded right now. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Tom, I want to say thank you because of the fact that these are sticking issues with one point. And you and I sit on the regional coalition allowing communities together, and it just goes to show that as adults we can set the one issue aside to work for the common good of the next issue. And that's why I still hold a lot of confidence here that we can work something out, we can work dialogue out, and there's elections coming up, and I'm pretty dang sure our voters will hold us to task with anything and everything that we have done or haven't done. The one thing I would like to say is that I know much like yourself, you and I hold a lot of the same values in our discussions. That at the end of the day, that as long as I know what I've done in the best interest of my community, then I can walk away with my head held high. So again, I want to thank you for sitting here across from us at this table. I know how hard it is to face a board of commissioners or council members where it seems like all odds are against you, everything's against you, but never fails. Yourself, Stephen, and Rick always come back to us and keep the dialogue open and professional. So again, thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the whole council. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Also, thanks to some of the members of the dispatch for being here as well. Thank you. Thank you all. And appreciate your patience during all this whole turmoil. So, all right. Also we have item B, consideration and possible direction to town manager to prepare and present alternatives for ensuring that E911 services is not affected by the possible withdrawal of Taos County from the current joint powers agreement and consolidated E911 dispatch services. I believe the intent on this is to specifically what we just discussed here is what are the alternatives, where do we go from here, the pressing issue, the underfunding of 911, what is going to happen if the county chooses not to partner up with the town or go on to provide their own dispatch. How is that going to impact our budget, and what are we going to have to do accordingly? So I think that's the intent. Council members, any questions, comments?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Abita.
Just like to reiterate that our number one priority is still to work together with the county to have a solution. This direction to management here is just to have a contingency plan just in case the county elects to go on their own. But the ultimate goal is to have one combined dispatch center working together.
Well, and I think that that goes for both governments need to prepare accordingly, because if the policy direction of the county commission is to go and create a separate dispatch facility, it's only fair to the county residents, all of us county residents, that we know what is the plan. Because a lot of your county residents are going to be coming into the town. And if that cell is originated from a tower in the county and GPS doesn't track it accordingly, what are we going to do? I think there has to be some collaborative partnership moving forward, no matter what happens. So I think that we don't want to have to plan for Plan B, but I think it behooves us all in the interest of public safety. So entertain a motion to give direction to the manager.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, members of the county, for being here. Commissioner, thank you. Next, we'll go to item 7A, resolution, consideration of possible approval of the 2014 Town of Taos employee holiday schedule. Oscar?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's usual just housekeeping resolution that we're asking you to approve here tonight. It's the same number of holidays, the same holidays as last year. We just have to bring it to you every year. And so here it is once again.
Councilmember Peralta.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would like to do is make a suggestion that that we have posting on the website when we're closed. Just,
Yes.
Just so that for those people out there can look on the website to see if, for example, if we're taking Columbus Day and we're moving it to the day after Thanksgiving, that they know that the town is open Columbus Day and it's not closed, and vice versa, the half day that we have off on the Taos Day, July the 18th, that be posted on there, because I know this last year I was looking for something and I went on the website to see if there was any posting that we were going to be closed for a particular reason, and we were closed, but there was nothing in the website for the public to know that we were closing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? What is the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to item B, consideration and possible approval of budget adjustment requests in the following funds: Community Grants Fund, Fire Department Fund, Police Department Fund, and from the unreserved fund from the capital improvement funds to cover the expected cost of the air filtration units in 2 fire stations, and also the airport construction fund, and the Taos Regional Landfill Fund, and the Taos Regional Landfill Acquisition Fund. Council members.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item C, presentation regarding the proposed dog park at Kit Carson Park. Oscar.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Council, you asked that we do what we could to convert the dilapidated, I guess that's the best term for it, really, the dilapidated tennis courts into a dog park. And so we've been working with people out in the community to come up with different versions of that, just to make sure that we didn't overbuild and also that we didn't underbuild the facility. And so what I had staff do is prepare options. And so we'd like to present them to you here. They all cost something. Some cost much more than others. And so I just want to make sure that you're aware of those. And so I've asked Mr. Kennebeck here to just give us a presentation of what those options are and what he learned from his input gathering in the community.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Manager. So at Oscar's direction, I went and visited with Jan Gordon, the executive director of Stray Hearts, and she actually volunteered to come with me to Kit Carson Park to just take a look at the tennis courts and give me her assessment of how that might work for a dog park. I was kind of dubious going in. I didn't really think it might work, but she was very upbeat about it. She thinks it would be fairly easy to convert into a usable dog park in Kit Carson Park. And what you see there, what the memo I prepared in that chart there gives you kind of a breakdown of the options Oscar asked me to prepare. But following that conversation and during the time I was at Kit Carson Park, I approached a couple of people who were walking dogs. Fortunately, they were all on leash. We have an issue there of people walking dogs off leash, and park staff have a hard time getting people to cooperate. And they have no enforcement authority, of course. They just can politely ask them to leash their dogs, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But the people I approached while I was there who were walking dogs thought it was a great idea. They'd use it and were very enthusiastic about it. I then put this issue on the agenda of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board agenda. They met last week. I attended. I attend all of them. And they unanimously voted against the idea, thinking and saying that no matter what cost it might be to convert that space to a dog park, they thought any money that was available should be put to programs for children or making improvements at the Youth and Family Center. So there's a couple of different camps there. I have an opinion, but I'll keep that to myself unless you ask me. The options I prepared are on that sheet there. And they come primarily in conversations from Jan Gordon. I'm by no means a dog park expert, but there is already existing a 12-foot chain link fence, very strong fence, is in good condition. The surface of the dog park is asphalt, 3 to 6 inches down. It's got this kind of fibrous paint on the top of it as a surface. It's broken. I thought that might be an issue. It is for tennis courts, of course, but Jan Gordon, said that for dogs, they won't even notice. So, would you like me to show that picture? Oh, here, okay. So that painted surface is about an 1/8 inch thick, and it's broken up in places, but she even said that surface is probably as good or better than gravel and much cheaper than sod. So you see the options there. There's 4 of them. The cheapest one is option 1, of course. What we would do is put in signs on the existing fence with rules for a dog park. We put in some benches for the people who are walking dogs. We put in some trash cans and the bag station, the sanitation bag stations. We would put up a kind of a netting that you'd see, that park is adjacent to the, here, I'll go to the room, I believe. So the park itself is in between the 2 Little League baseball fields now. The upper right-hand corner there is north, so it's sandwiched in between the 2 parks, baseball fields, and then there's a walking park, so it's on the western edge, the end of the park in the back, for those who don't know. And then there's 2 batting cages have been constructed on the existing tennis court since it was taken out of use as a tennis court. The dimensions are 120 feet in length and 96 feet wide. The batting cage area is 96 feet wide. So that area where the batting cage is, that fence that's been erected inside would get a netting over it to shield from view the kids in the batting cage or the people who are using the batting cage and the dogs. And I thought that might be an issue, but Jan says if dogs don't see it, they'll be busy running around and they won't most of the time notice that when it's being used as a batting cage that there's someone in there. So to go back to the other slide. So what we do in option 1 is just put up screening. The dogs need water. There's no water near there right now, so we'd have to, in this first option, just bring water to the park. That would mean some of our park staff would daily go and refill and freshen up water for the dogs. Maybe she said 3 times a day. Jan thought a small dog park within the park would be good because quite often people with small dogs, they're intimidated by bigger dogs. But in the first option, we wouldn't have that. Removing the asphalt surface would not be done, and the canopy is a shade element for humans, for the people who bring dogs there. And in the dog park at Stray Hearts, and I think now it's reading through a file that is here, they have benches with shade over them, and there is no shade over the field, or the tennis courts now. So it would be nice, but it's not necessary. Option 2 is the same thing as in option 1, except in this option we would put up a second fence along the batting cage to keep kids from sticking their hands through, to keep dog muzzles from getting through. And we put in a second gate. This is something I didn't think of, but she says it's a good idea to have a second gate at the entrance so that if someone comes in with a dog, another one doesn't rush out. And then this second option we would put in inside the area 2 pieces of fence, 2 lengths of fence to cordon off an area for small dogs. And then we'd leave the asphalt and we wouldn't have shade for the pet owners. Option 3 gets kind of up to the if you could do everything kind of scenario. Everything we just discussed, and then an external dog park adjacent to that fenced-in area that exists, another one right next to it for small dogs. And then taking up the asphalt and either putting down, gravel, which would be cheaper, or digging up the asphalt and then putting in sod. And then we would also add some kind of shade element, some kind of canopy over the benches. And you see the costs there. These are rough estimates. The breakdowns in the memo you got. And then alternatively, as number 4, Oscar said, maybe scope out some other alternative locations. And we have space in Fred Baca Park where we could put something in. It would, of course, cost more. Eagle Park, the land is, I believe, owned by the school system, but maybe we could have some agreement with them. And the Taos Library, this is my 3rd suggested location. And I picked these because they're in or close to neighborhood areas. There's parking, there's access to public restrooms, and in the 2 cases we own the land that I'm suggesting. So those are my options, those are my observations, and I stand for any questions.
Any Councilmember Peralta?
A couple of questions, Steve. One is on alternatives 4. Isn't really an alternative as much as another location.
Right.
Because one dog park isn't necessarily enough. Because you have people in different areas of the community who would like to be in their neighborhood to have their own dog park. So to me, that is, if we had the money, we could do more than one dog park.
We could.
And that would really satisfy a lot of issues. Right. But one of the things that I have is that I thought there was concrete underneath that asphalt.
I thought so too, but I asked both Gilbert Martinez and French Espinosa, and they say it's just asphalt.
So if that asphalt came out, there should be base course under it.
Probably.
Because you can't put that asphalt just down over the soil. So if you took the asphalt out, you shouldn't have to do anything. That base course should be a sufficient base for a dog park.
Right. I would think so too.
It wouldn't be muddy, you wouldn't have any of those issues. So I think we could cut some of that cost if we out of that. And not to say that we have the money to take out the asphalt, but we could do that. I think I know in dog parks that I visited with my daughter and their dogs, they were free for no matter what size dog it was.
No, it's true.
And it wasn't an issue that you had to separate one from the other.
Well, see, this is where talking to somebody like Jan came in handy. At this dog park we do have, there are 2 areas. There's one for all dogs, a general dog area, and then for those people who think or know that their small dog is intimidated by others, there is immediately adjacent to that dog park at Stray Hearts a small dog area.
But usually you have to keep the big dog away because the little dog will beat up on it.
Yeah, it all depends on how much heart they have, I guess. Now,
They're
to
a lot
your
more-
point
I'll
about
tell you when I'm walking, they're a lot more aggressive than the big dogs are.
or they think they're bigger than they are. To the point about the alternative, I just, in case for some reason we didn't want, or you all decided not to go with Kit Carson, those are some other places we could possibly put them. And I might also add that I don't have any money in my budget for this, so we'd have to find the money regardless of what option you went with.
I think I have some money in my travel budget I'll give you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Steve. Kit Carson Park, utilizing that for a dog park, I think is a bad idea. Bad idea. And let me tell you why. I don't know if you've ever played baseball or Little League.
I did.
Okay. Can you imagine utilizing that batting cage with dogs barking right next, and you're trying to concentrate on having that ball come at you, whatever the pitching machine throws it at? I think it's just a terrible idea. The other thing is, I have a 6-year-old, okay? And you take and consider the intimidation of big dogs and little dogs. Talk about a 6-year-old who's had a bad experience with dogs, okay? My son has, and I can tell you firsthand, I would love for him to play baseball. If there's a dog park there ain't no way I'm going to be able to drag him over there. He will not play. It's just not for my child, though. I'm just thinking, as that is an example of how many other kids have the same concerns. I love animals, and I hope to get my son to agree to start out maybe with a puppy. But I still have to convince him of that. The other thing, too, is kids will be kids, and they're going to tease those dogs in that dog park, and they're going to just get unruly. They're going to be barking and noisy. They're not going to be able to be easily controlled. So I think that a dog park in that location is a very bad idea. Is there space within Kit Carson Park? I don't know. I mean, I guess we could look at that. I do know that there's a children's playground that we need to be concerned with, and
Right.
and I don't think we want dog park too close to that as well. When this topic about a dog park came up, and we ended up constructing one by the off of Canyon West, there was a couple more options, and I just happen to agree with the Parks and Rec recommendation. Not there. I would like to see that money towards kids. But if we must have one, I think that a good option is the Fred Baca Park. That field used to be used for the utilization of mostly soccer. And since we've built the Echo Park, I've noticed when I drive through there that it's not getting utilized as much. My recommendation would be the south end of that field. I think it would lend itself well. A lot of people do walk their dogs there already.
Right.
And so that's where I'd like to see it.
Well, when I spoke with Gilbert Martinez, he said people, to my surprise, still use that soccer area quite a bit at Fred Baca Park. But there is an area just past the parking lot where the restrooms are now. That it's large enough, I think, sufficient size to fence in and make a dog park out of.
Still by a playground.
Wherever it's at, if there's children, involved, I'd like some separation. I mean, I just wouldn't want a dog to get loose and hurt any child.
Well, I'd point out, and I haven't really expressed my opinion, but there are, and I've been to Kit Carson Park a lot during the day, even during the week, and there's a lot of people with dogs there all the time. So this is just an area where they could let them off the leash more responsibly than within a confined area than letting them off the leash just to run loose.
And I don't disagree with you. I have seen those dogs there. I think you'd see more children there if there were less dogs.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Councilor Silva, I think I'd have to disagree with you on several quotes, and the number one being is that the highest utilization of the batting cage is during the baseball season. And if you've ever been there, and I mean, I don't know how old your boy is, but Jameson's played baseball now. This was his last year. And it's almost non-existent because the T-ball games are going on at the same time that there aren't a lot of dog walkers in there. Now, at the same token, what concerns me is when Jameson started T-ball, people used to use the T-ball field as their potty grounds for their pets. So now if you still have an issue of concern, you're not going to solve the problem. With that instance, I think you better control it, you better curb it, and having a designated area as opposed to having it a free-for-all. So I think any other location, which I mean, living in town and close to town when I lived on Ranchitos, my wife and I would frequent Kit Carson Park. And at any given time, I mean, you can find individuals walking their pets, I mean, all hours of even the night. And, for them, I think it's kind of a safe haven. It's, the one thing that I would see individuals and they would ask me for is more lighting or a better area for them to maintain their pets where they're not a whole lot of interaction with children. So I think the idea of the dog park has come up several times. And I do think that this is probably one of the best fits for it in that what we have as far as structure is already there. And it would curb, aside from having, the uncontrolled pets being out there in the areas where children play, which I'm specifically speaking towards the T-ball fields, what we consider the T-ball field. Any other option, if you look at Fred Baca Park, that field is highly utilized at all seasons, and irregardless of the fact that we built the Eco Park, I mean, I take issues now with Our Lady of Guadalupe Gym being used as an area for soccer. So soccer, just because of the Eco Park being there, isn't, I wouldn't say we've solved the problem that now soccer just has one place to go. There's just too many dang kids involved in the sport that they branch out to every single open field, every single open gym, any single open space that they can find to host a practice. So I think, Fred Baca Park, if you go there even on a weekend, because of the, family events, the fact that we lease the park, it's consistently used. And I guess maybe I see it more now because I have a little guy that's very actively involved in sports. I mean, this last football season, he spent 4 days out of the week from 3:30 till about 7 o'clock there every night. And, so for me, it's comforting in knowing that it's being used as a sports field and not a potty field. And you do get your instances, he'd come home and he'd have a landmine on his shoe, but, I think it's a lot better controlled within the area that we're proposing now, especially because we don't have a huge high cost of turning it into that facility. The other thing, we keep talking about these benches, and Mr. Mayor, I don't know what we did with the old bus stops, but that's an option too because they do provide some cover.
I think that's what got put into Stray Hearts. It was old bus station benches.
Okay. Councilmember Gonzalez, you done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Beta.
Thank you, Mayor Cordova. I'd like to recognize Ms. Rona Rosquist in the audience. She's the one that came up with this idea, and I agreed to champion it because I think it's an excellent idea. Looking at the options outlined, Steve, option one is a pretty marginal option, but it's driven by money.
Right.
Option four, as Councilmember Peralta pointed out, is a good option for future growth, for future parks. This is all about perspective. It's very easy for the advisory board to say, let's put the money with the kids. We do spend $1.2 million a year to Youth and Family Center. We have a $2 million Eco Park. We spent $90,000 a year at the Stray Hearts. They have a dog park there that's almost exclusively for the use of those animals. We need one in the neighborhoods where people walk, i.e. Kit Carson Park, and they can use it. So that's why this is an excellent idea. Given the fact, as Councilor Peralta pointed out, given the fact that the asphalt at Kit Carson Park does not have concrete under it, you take that asphalt out, and you got base course underneath, and you have a dog park. So, Mr. Mayor and council members, I would like to see option 3 implemented, even if we have to phase it based on the availability of funds. But The citizens of Taos deserve a park for dogs in the perimeter of the town, close in town. Many of us have children that have already left. Many of us have small pets, and those small pets are just as loved as if we have children. So we can't start to say, or only children and no pets. I mean, pets are very important to a lot of people. I have a 4-pound miniature Yorkie. I lost one in June, Councilman Silva, and I cried for that little dog. So let me tell you, pets can become very close to people, and we owe it to this community to have a dog park. I argue that Kit Carson Park is an excellent location. Councilmember Silva, I do acknowledge your concerns, and I think there's ways to mitigate that. These 2 batting cages were placed in the tennis courts. If we implement a dog park there, if council agrees, and we determine that that's a problem, those 2 batting cages can easily be relocated within the same area so that they're not butted up against the dog park. I visited the dog park in Albuquerque on Alameda in Louisiana, a state-of-the-art dog park. They do have a small dog area and a big dog area. The double gate is an excellent idea. To not have a double gate would be problems, so we really need the double gate. But folks, it's long due. We need it. Kudos to Rena. She came up with the idea, but I would encourage council to give direction to staff to let's start implementing option 3. And I believe at the last council meeting, town manager, Mayor had given direction that not only are we going to explore options, but let's start actually turning soil and doing it. And I believe, Councilmember Silva, you might have been absent at that meeting and missed that, so that might be part of the issue. But it's definitely a good idea, and I encourage you to do it.
Okay. I know that along those same lines of Councilmember Beta, never thought that I'd be having a dog live in my house, and you get attached to him, and I think the idea of, and actually my dog is a brother of your dog. Correct. So, yeah, we bought him at the same. I couldn't refuse. So, and so I can't imagine that little dog going into a large dog area. So I think it's a great idea to have that separation. So, any other comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I got it. I got it. We're going option 3 right away. We'll start with We'll start phasing it. So this is done in a phase fashion. So right away we're doing option 1, phase 2, as we find the resources, ultimately ending up in phase 3.
Yeah, and I think that's a good approach.
And Mr. Mayor, Oscar, I am serious about taking my travel budget and using it for this.
Okay. Well, then.
Because what I was going to use it for is gone, and so it's available.
All right, so we'll have a dog park there in a couple of weeks.
Very well.
Okay. And on alternative locations, on Camino de la Merced and Salazar, we filled a piece of property in exchange for a couple of acres or a piece of property in the back by the storage locations. Used to be a formal landfill back in the day. Do you recall that, where they filled in?
Wasn't there a church
we used
there?
town
Dave's
resources.
Ferry property?
Yeah, we used town resources to fill in his property in exchange for him quitclaiming property behind that. And you may want to look at that, and I think the intent of the council, because it used to be a former landfill back in the day, that we were going to use it specifically for a dog park in that area.
Mr. Mayor, did that issue get resolved with Dave Sperry?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
I believe it did. So check and see. Did we acquire the property? Was it? Because I know there was a problem with the him making good on it. So, but look into that. Look into that as an option. Okay, sir. So I believe council is in consensus. I know there's a split.
It's not
vote,
unanimous.
So, not unanimous. So is it okay to assume that council direction is to, let's do it in the form of a vote, just for the motion to proceed with option 3?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Vote.
By the vote of 3 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, the motion passes for direction. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rena, for coming to our meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we will go to resolution, consideration possible approval, resolution 1374, consideration of alternatives to Los Alamos National Laboratory's proposed plan of leaving nuclear waste buried in place at TA 54 Area G. Oscar?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this is the resolution that you directed that we bring to you. It's the exact replica of the resolution that the city of Santa Fe passed a couple of weeks ago, but for the names having been changed. It's pretty clear. It urges Los Alamos Labs to find alternatives to what they're planning right now in burying radioactive waste.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve and a second. All those in favor signify by
Under
saying
discussion,
aye.
Mr. Mayor, real quick.
Under discussion, Councilmember Gonzalez.
I just want to say, Oscar, thank you for preparing this in the time that you have. I think it's an extremely, extremely good thing because, as everybody knows, Los Alamos National Lab sits directly downwind from us, and I've always, in my regional coalition meetings, to the stakeholders of the lab, have always told them that the consensus and the feeling of northern New Mexico is that when Los Alamos National Lab sneezes, northern New Mexico gets the cold. And I say that with regards to the amount of true waste, legacy waste that sits on that hill in the event of a major flood, which is very likely nowadays, especially with regards to fire. All that's going to wash right back down into the Rio Grande and the watersheds. So I'm extremely happy to see this resolution and support because I promise you it does hold weight at the national level with regards to budgetary alignments and what they see fit for budget. So thanks, Oscar, for jumping on it immediately, and I want to thank my fellow councilors, too, for endorsing it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to item C, discussion regarding the date and location of the annual State of the Town meeting in January 2014. As you know, I effectuated the final documents for the lease between UNM and the town of Taos, where we are allowing UNM to take over the convention center and Baton, and that is official now. All documents have been signed, and I think it was a great move on the council's part to utilize this for education in our community. So now we have a situation where I don't know if they're going to start retrofitting by that date, and where do we want to have the annual State of the Town. I believe we can have it in here, but it's a little small in comparison to the attendance that usually.
TCA.
The
The TCA might be a good one, too.
TCA
Yeah.
might be good.
Or the county commission chambers.
County Commission Chambers. Should do an MOU for that.
MOU to utilize their facility that we pay for.
I think that's an excellent idea, Councilmember
TCA.
Peralta. The TCA, if we can have discussions regarding that. Is that okay
Date?
with the council?
Yeah.
Date, I'll yield to the council. I can make myself available any date.
January 1st? I'm just kidding.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, normally we've had it on the same day as the opening of the legislature. And because the council meetings now are the second and fourth, it would not be on the opening day of the legislature if we have it the fourth week of January.
Okay. Yeah, we just need to make sure if we can check with the legislative agenda, because many times I've missed some key legislative functions that take place, like the municipal something or another has taken place that evening, where you get to really talk to key legislators. So just make sure that we look at that in making the, and setting up that date. So let's look for a date, the latter part of the week, the latter part of January. The last week of January, is that okay with the council?
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just to keep in mind, the legislative session this time is 30 days.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. If I may, just so I have all the latitude necessary to make the preparations, in the event that for some reason TCA seems to be booked that time, I'll just work with you individually about the places that seem to be available for us. That it's not totally out of the question that UNM will allow us to use that space.
You're going to do the rolling quorum again?
No, sir. No, sir. It would be
I think
doing that.
what we should do is give an option. I think if TCA is not available, should we look at a private place, Sagebrush? as an alternative.
I'll also look at private places. All I'm asking, just give me the latitude. I'll
Yeah.
find you an
Yeah.
appropriate and dignant place to have it.
Yeah, we can work together to find that. Okay.
Well, you know, if you have it at TCA, you could have a little wine afterwards.
The wine, yeah. Do they have a beer and wine now?
Cheese, crackers.
All those, okay, so that's the direction there, Oscar. Next, we'll go to item D, the Mary D. Medina Building. Consideration and possible direction to the town manager regarding the disposition of the Mary Medina Building. As you know, council members, 1 year that we didn't have, there was no money at the legislature. We didn't take that as we said, well, what can we get from the legislature? We looked at different initiatives, and one of the areas, since we needed a police department, a new police building, was can the state give us the Mary D. Medina Building? We were successful in the late Representative Ben Lujan was able to put a dummy bill, what they call a dummy bill, at the last minute to get that passed to the legislature and get us that building, that facility. We knew clearly that that building was probably not going to be worth salvaging, but the property had some value. So we came in hand with some value from the legislature. In looking at the options for the police department, I think the most viable and clearly the best money-saving one was utilizing our planning department and kind of consolidating some of the areas at Town Hall, and it worked out really, really well. So now we have the Mary D. Medina Building. I've had 2 requests for the Mary D. Medina Building, and one that has been from the Land Grant Association. They asked back a while back when we hadn't made the decision to move the police department. And more recently, I attended the veterans services that take place at the plaza, and I was just so moved and intrigued by all the veterans that were there. And you know, they were talking about this cemetery that was given by Clower, and now the county is looking at making that a veteran cemetery here in Taos, and what that's going to take. And there was talk about that, and I saw so many people with VFW, their attire on, and I felt that it was a shame that Taos, you know, world-renowned Taos, doesn't have a VFW that our veterans can destine and congregate at, you know, them and their families. So I thought, what are the possibilities that maybe the town can assist on some of their vacant buildings, such as the Mary Medina Building or the old dispatch facility. So I, myself and Councilmember Abeta attended a meeting with the veterans and let them know that we were here to try to support them in that effort to, whatever it takes to try to get the veterans, the VFW, some type of facility here in Taos. So that's how the Veterans Initiative came on, but there is 2 entities that are looking at the facility now. I know that there's some issues now of legal issues if it goes to the VFW. One, the legislature authorized it for a specific purpose, which is for municipal use. Now, is there a way around that? Can the town facilitate that and contract with the veterans for that specific services to our community, to provide a service for our community, for our veterans of our community? Our attorney's going to talk about that, and also the need for our land grants. I mean, I think we can't ignore the fact that our land grants is a very prominent part of our community, and there's several land grants within our county. So I think that we'd have to look at what do we do with that. And there's 2 acres.
No, split it in half.
Yeah,
Give each one half.
Yeah, there's 2 acres, and that may be an idea where, you know, maybe we can accommodate both. I think with both of these initiatives, maybe there can be some cooperation with the county as well. Who will not want to support our veterans in this county? I mean, that's a no-brainer. And but just looking for all the options, I wanted to present this to the council to see if this was something the council wanted us to look forward to. I certainly support it. As we know also with the land grants, they're certainly a part of our community. I'm an heir to a land grant. I think all of us probably are as natives here in this community. So we need to look and work with the land grants as well to see how and where local governments can support, since they're a political subdivision as well. I know that the anti-donation doesn't fall with them if they have all their documentation in place as a political subdivision as distinguished by the state legislature. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to provide for possibly both here. Brian, if you can kind of let us know what hurdles, I know that there is some hurdles given that VFW is a private organization, but I think there can be some public-private partnerships if we be creative about it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very recently, on September 3rd, we recorded a deed from the state of New Mexico, and the deed is not a clear title deed. It's a deed with strings attached. And the most salient feature, which is if the town of Taos decides that the property, the Mary Medina building, is no longer needed for the Taos police station or other traditional and customary municipal use and should be disposed of, then at the option of the state, they can take the property back at no cost to the state. So I don't know.
Unless we would reauthorize that bill that gave us that building. And I talked to Senator Cisneros, and he was very, very supportive of doing whatever it took to lend his support to that. And I think that's the hurdle we would need. And Councilmember Peralta, you've been in the legislature before, so you know what that would entail.
Mr. Mayor, and if I could, Brian, but there's another option here, and rather than disposing of the property in the sense of giving it, couldn't we do a long-term lease of that property like we do with the ARC or the CAV or those other facilities that we have out there, the Ancianos?
That was the workaround suggested by the Office of the Town Attorney. That workaround comes with the caveat that the building has, in the past, been determined not to be healthy.
Well, but let me finish what I was going to say in that regard. And that is, in my discussion, for example, with the land grant people, they were looking at demolishing the building and going to the legislature for funds to put a new building on there. So if we gave them 50-year lease or whatever it might be, and had them go get the funds to raise the building that's there and put a new building in its place, couldn't that work? And that would be, in a sense, in lieu of rent.
Well, again, I guess it would depend on whether the Property Control Division, which is now called the Facilities Management Division, viewed that as a disposal of the property. I don't know. I've not talked to them because I didn't know which direction we're going. All I know is that this language is intended to be limiting language, and certainly the best and easiest route that gives us the most options would be for the Roundhouse folks to change the language.
The only problem is we can't change the language of this legislative session since it's only for budget, without a letter or an agreement from the governor to send down a message.
That would be a stumbling block, although I think we've all seen non-budget stuff passed in a short session. At any rate, I only say this, the caveat is that right now our agreement is if we don't use it for traditional and customary municipal use, and it's viewed that a long-term lease is a disposal, then we have an issue. But I agree with you, Councilman, that the logical workaround would be, rather than to convey it to somebody, to allow folks, for whatever purpose council decided, to use it on a long-term lease basis, and we have that arrangement with several other entities around town.
But couldn't we use that arrangement that we have with others, since they've been going on for 30 or 40 years in some cases, as a customary use of town facilities?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, sure, but I don't know about the Facilities Management Division.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, couldn't that be used as an argument to them to say, prior to doing anything, we'd have to get their permission anyway, that we make that argument, and if they agree to it, then we can move forward.
certainly that's a possibility, and I'd be happy to have those discussions. They're going to be somewhat taken aback. It took us 2 years to get this deed done, and the ink isn't dry, and then here we are, we're back. So, I mean, there is that human being aspect of it is, you know, you just got it. Now you're asking for changes.
Well, I think if they see what we're doing with it, the traditional and customary uses of municipal uses, as you define now, well, it's been a tradition that the town of Taos does so many extra things, such as CFE, Ancianos, TCA, and this may be viewed as providing these services that are needed to our community, and clearly this falls within that.
Oh, I'd be delighted to make the argument. I've certainly won on less.
Great. And we do have some people from the VFW. We'll allow them to speak, as well as the land grant folks as well. So let me get some comments, and then we'll allow you guys to speak. Councilmember Abate.
Thank you, Mayor Cordova. I attended the Veterans Ceremony. Afterwards, we all attended the Veterans Picnic at Baton Hall. And for those folks that attended that was quite an event to see our forefathers there, 80, 90, 91, 93, Abe from Abe's Cantina, Mr. Romero from Rancho's 91 years old. I mean, it was just an amazing event. And as the mayor pointed out, it's a sad day in Taos that we can't do anything to help our veterans have a facility. So I believe that also, before I go on to that, a while back, there was some bogus deeds that were filed, and it involved a couple of land grants, including Cristobal de la Serna land grant. And the council met with the board members of Cristobal de la land grant, and we mutually agreed to work together and help each other, and we resolved the problem. So we also have an obligation as a governing body to help Cristobal de la Serna land grant and the people of that organization. So as Councilmember Peralta pointed out, the Mary D. Medina building could be retrofitted, and it could be cut in half or a third, 2/3, whatever, and a part of it could go to the Veterans VFW. Another part could go to Cristobal de la Serna Land Grant Association. Another idea is we also have the old dispatch center. Maybe that would be a suitable building for Cristobal de la Serna Land Grant, and the Mary D. Medina building could go to the veterans. But I think now what we need to do is we need to peel back the onion. We need to analyze this. We need to study it. And I really believe that if there's a will, there's a way, and we can definitely take care of both entities without any problem. And both entities fully deserve it.
Okay. Any other comments? And then let me go to the audience. Anybody want to speak on this issue? Mr. Vargas, welcome to our meeting, sir. Welcome.
Mayor and Councilman, thank you for allowing us this opportunity, the step that you're taking into possibility of donating a building. First of all, the Veterans Organization, if they have a property or building.
Pull up a chair there. You could pull up one.
Excuse me, this is our commander, Jeff Padilla, from our local VFW and Ladies Auxiliary.
Welcome to our meeting. Welcome.
If there's a building that belongs to the VFW or is going into use into that building and anything in it belongs to the VFW, which includes the Department of New Mexico. In the past, there was an issue also back south in the south, someplace in the south, where two individuals owned a VFW building, and I'm going to say the VFW building, and it could have been the American Legion or another organization. Eventually, the VFW dissolved in that area. So the American Legion, I don't know, I'm just using the American Legion as an example. They stayed with that building, part of it, half of it. The other half had to have been sold, and that money, and monies or anything in it, went to the Department of New Mexico. So if anything is tied up to the VFW, assuming that we have a VFW, everything belongs to the state of New Mexico, to the department in New Mexico. If we dissolve, now, there is a possibility, but I can go check with my officers in the Department of New Mexico. If two separate organizations get into that building with the assumption or assuming that if either one or both ever dissolve from that, the building goes back to the town of Taos. And that, I think, would be worked out in agreement, assuming that that building, Mary D. Medina, would come down, and you're assuming that the land grant and the VFW would not own it probably, but facilitate that building.
Yeah.
But with the assumption, again, that if the VFW would ever dissolve from that or from the organization, which I know we won't because we're always getting new members, but my suggestion would be that if it does come through with an agreement that it would go back to the town of Taos.
I think that's one of the options that we're going to definitely explore is, would that be an option, giving it to the state of New Mexico for the specific purpose of providing a facility here in Taos?
Right.
That may be a viable option as well. So we're going to, lift up all the stones and look at viable ways to make this happen. I think it's the council's intent to see that we can make this happen. So.
And we appreciate, the step that you're taking to help us out. And, for our part, we have an acre of land right across from the Eco Park. And we've had that for years. Somebody was saying decades. I think somebody was saying that landfill for the dog park. I remember when that landfill was there.
Sure, yeah.
And, that's going back years and years.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but we have our land, but we've always been wanting to do something in it. But we appreciate the town mayor coming up with this proposal, and that's one step that's and closer to the reality that not just these individuals have, but we have the elderlies that have been in the VFW, including the auxiliary, that they have always thought of having their own building.
Yeah, and you see so many small communities that do have them.
Exactly.
And it's just a shame that we don't have one here in Taos.
Exactly.
We need to. We're better than that. We can have one here in Taos.
I'm the District 6 commander, and I'm in charge of 6 posts: Santa Fe, Espanola, Los Alamos, Taos, Cuesta, and Tierra Maria. And Taos is the only one that doesn't have a building for us to do our functions or district meeting.
Great. Well,
and even now, because we do military honors for veterans, we have a case, they go.
That would be a nice place to have a dinner after like the service or something like that as well. Maybe the VFW ladies auxiliary would be willing to put that up for the families.
sure. Well, we're here to change that. Hopefully soon Taos won't be the only one without
and
one.
like I said, we appreciate for the town coming up with just even the idea.
Sure.
That just opened up, our eyes, our hearts, and it started motivating us.
Sure.
So we appreciate that, Mayor and Councilman, for consideration.
So we'll be in contact with you all as we start getting some ideas together,
Right.
and to see exactly what's viable. Potentially partnering up with what the resources that you have, contacts in Santa Fe and such. So.
Yeah, and like I told all the members in the auxiliary, this is it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a little process, So, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Even
Thank you.
thinking.
And I appreciate your patience throughout the meeting. So it was probably somewhat entertaining for you guys. Mr. Francisco Gonzalez, you guys want to, La Serna Grant, members from the Serna Grant? Is there anybody else that want to speak on the VFW before I go to the, Mr. Gonzalez, if you don't mind, that way I'll have one party at a time. Not that we're pitting each other against each other, but, ma'am, that way we'll hear in its entirety from one organization. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. I'm Kim Sanchez. I'm president of Not Forgotten Outreach. We are the organization that, along with the VFW and the Ladies Auxiliary and many other groups, we hosted the Veterans Day picnic. We are dedicated to making a difference in Taos and in New Mexico when it comes to our veterans, when it comes to our surviving family members, and when it comes to our active duty members. We believe that it is vital for all of these groups to come together, become active in their community, and to make a difference. They are our future leaders, and that's why we need to help them onto their individual path after they've come out of the military and they have suffered through many tragic and many disturbing events. We are exceedingly grateful that you would consider giving us a place to come together for the VFW. We are members, my spouse and I are members of the VFW, and our ultimate purpose for the VFW, for our group, for the Ladies Auxiliary, is not for us veterans, but what we can do for our community. If we just come together for ourselves, we only help ourselves, and that destroys you. It becomes this inbreeding that just eats at you. We really believe that we have to reach out to our community. If we had a building that we could come to and we could bring more members in, we will be able to make such a huge impact on not just Taos, but all of New Mexico. Now, honestly, I love the idea of sharing it with the land grant. I'm not looking for us to have something that's solely ours. That really doesn't matter. If we can share it, all the better. I think that whatever you guys are able to come up with, we will be extremely grateful. And I think that's the most that I would like to say is that we're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the great job you did in hosting that. That was awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to recognize her. She's our first female in the VFW, and she's also an Iraq veteran.
Oh, wow. Great.
Oh.
Thank you. Anyone else on the VFW issue? Mr. Gonzalez, members of the Senate Grant, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, gentlemen.
If you could, for the record, just introduce your board members for the record.
Yes, sir. Well, we're short 3 board members because you know how it is. The Taos News says we can't get together and eat, have lunch. So we chose to see who would be able to be making it here. And out of our board, we have Ricardo Romero on the far left, and then we have Mr. Other Romero over here. Todo en llano quemado, almost everybody's a Romero, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, and looking at this, let me just say and commend you, Council, for thinking very highly of our veterans. I'd like to just remind you that I myself am a veteran, and I have 3 children that are veterans. I have a daughter that's been in Iraq 3 times. I have, they're all officers, and one of them, my daughter's a major, and my 2 sons are lieutenant colonels, and they're retired now, and they look forward to being members of this community eventually. So having a place and a location for the veterans here is definitely something that we also, as a land grant, would definitely like to encourage. And I didn't realize that the VFW did have a building, but just another idea to float amongst the council would be if you could acquire some funding and put a community center right on the land that they presently own and lease it to the VFW for $1 a year or something like that. And that would probably be an easier way or a faster way of getting to that and really having the VFW have a building of its own. And it's not to say that we wouldn't mind sharing with them, except that it does create, I'd say, more complications than meets the eye. Our purpose for, if you remember, last year we submitted a letter to you and requested to see if you would help us in the acquisition of some land, any of the vacant pieces of land you had. And one of the places that we specifically requested was that of the Medina building. And your response was at that time that you were looking at it and considering to put the police department in that location. And that didn't happen. And I was fortunate to bump into the mayor, and his statement to me was, listen, we haven't forgotten how we should interact with the land grant and see how the town can still continue to be of support to you guys. And I says, remember, we still are in need of a building. We had an opportunity to have gotten some monies from the legislature to help us seek a piece of land, and unfortunately, the time allotted to us to expend those funds passed, and we were not able to locate a suitable piece of land, not only because of the so many requirements and requisites that are mandated by the state, and so consequently we returned that money back. But the proviso was also that the legislature will look at us again, and if we can acquire a piece of land, that they will provide us with funding so that we can renovate or we can build a new building on that land. So basically, as you see, the Medina building is right adjacent to our land grant, and actually, if you look at the history of the Cristóbal de la Serna land grant, it extended further to the north, and so you're looking at the old maps of when the Spanish had it. It would have that piece of property would be falling into the land grant area. So, and what we would like to do is request, since we are a subgovernmental entity, is to request an expeditious resolve on having the property granted to us, and so that we can go to the legislature and seek some funding so that we can start doing the footwork that is necessary to start either refurbishing the building or constructing a new one. I think probably the latter one would be the best alternative as far as looking at the building and what other alternatives we have. So that is our presentation. And if you have any questions, we intended to use this as a depository building for all the acequias in our area, and as well as in our county for that matter, who may want to use this building. We would want to set aside a specific room so that the acequias can put all their paperwork and if they so choose to have their meetings there too, that'd be fine. But there is definitely a very, very urgent need for acequias to have a place and a location where they can keep their paperwork. Because I'm also chairman of the Acequia Madre del Rio Grande, and right now our treasurer is the one that has some of the documentation, and then our secretary has another portion of documentation, and in our land grant we also have our secretary that has some of the documentation, and our chairman has a certain amount of documentation. So this would allow land grants also to be able to use this building and have a location where they can set aside their paperwork in a secure way, in a secure place where they could come and be able to know where it is and have it and be able to share it with the community. So, and with that, I'd like to open for any questions that you might have, and I'd appreciate the opportunity of him to come here. But in no way do we want to, I would say, and I'm sure I could speak for behalf of the land grant, do we want to be in any way a wedge with or in competition with the veterans, because I'm a veteran myself, and the thing is that I think that well, I don't know if they would consider the old building that you have here in town, if that would suffice for them, or the initial idea of you guys building up a new building in their property, that I think that would bring a lot of joy to them.
And I think all the ideas are on the table right now. I've even looked at the idea of selling the old dispatch facility and maybe using some of that funding for a new building to create that in a manner that falls within the confines of the procurement code. So, Councilmember Peralta.
Mr. Mayor, Francisco, one of the issues that we're talking about that our attorney brought up is that the restrictions on the deed to that property that was given to us by the state doesn't allow us to, how should I say, release that building, that property to somebody else, the way it's stated. So we would have to go back to the legislature and get that language changed in order for us to do that, which could be 2 years down the road. However, if we could create a long-term lease, you still have the possibility of getting money from the legislature to put a facility on there that would be yours. That would be a quicker way of doing it if we can get certainty on the language that we can lease it back to someone like yourselves in the manner we're talking about. And I understand that there's 2 acres there, so if we took 1 acre apiece, there's plenty of land to do both programs on the same property without conflict, I feel. It gives you enough parking for both sides. And that the concern I have with this building over here, and it's the same problem we had with the police department, that there's no parking. And so if you're going to have a function there of 30 or 40 veterans or members of the land grant, if you were to take that building, it's the same issue. You just don't have the parking, and we talked about that, you and I, that's a real problem with that building that you don't have at the Mary Medina. So looking at that facility, normal parking on an acre of land is about 90 cars. So if you took half an acre of that for the building, you can put 120, 150 cars on that lot. So there's plenty of facility in that property there for both uses, I think. And in some cases, there may be a possibility of, you talked about having a facility where people could come for community functions and that sort of thing. It's kind of like sharing an event center, in a sense, between 2 entities, too, that we could look at in saying that here is the land grant has a facility that could have for meetings or luncheons or whatever it might be, and it's the same thing. They share facilities. It helps cover costs and that sort of thing for both entities. So I think there's some possibilities to look at, and I'm not asking for any commitments on anybody's part at this point, but I think from some of the discussions I've had and that I'm looking at them and saying there's some possibilities here that, because you have some needs that are pretty similar between the 2 organizations, that I think it could be possibly a good marriage.
No, I don't dispute that. I think it's I think it is quite possible. And the thing is that what I'd like to see, if at all possible, is if you could get your attorney and your legal counsel to look at the proposals that you have, that we've discussed here tonight, look at the alternatives. And from what I see and from what I've been looking at, I would say the one that would best fit it would be the fact that we are a subgovernmental entity, and the fact that that would help us proceed there. And then the mayor's idea of selling this building and providing the money to build that other facility there that could very well facilitate for the veterans, and we'd still be in the same property. So it would be an acre to each, and that would be fine. I don't think that, and I think that's a good idea. And however we can work on it, we'd like to, because one of the goals that we want to go back to this legislative session, and that is to see if we can get some funds to start working on that. So if we can get some kind of work done in your legal department to see what alternatives they can offer us, and then definitely we would entertain it and look at it, and then let the board make a decision on how they would want to go forward.
I think there's a lot of possibilities here, and I think even with the assets that the VFW has now, combining those resources, selling this building, and splitting up that property, and creating a facility there for specifically for the veterans, and then donating this to the land grant, I think can make for a property that's common for community use. So, Councilmember Abeyta.
Thank you, Mayor Cordova. Mr. Gonzalez, thank you for your service. I served with your two sons in the 80s at Kirtland, two fine young men you raised there. Mr. Romero, thank you. I think this is really doable. As Councilmember Peralta pointed out, the problem with the building here in Civic Plaza Drive is the lack of parking. That's why, one of the reasons why we got out of there. But we can take that Mary V. Medina building, cut it into 2 1-acre lots with shared parking, and it solves everybody's problem. Because my guess is that the veterans are going to have, typically they're going to have larger events, gatherings that maybe you are, but it's still good to have that shared parking just as overflow parking, and it ends up being a win-win for everybody. And Ms. Sanchez, I wish you would take your energy and go have a meeting with the county commission and encourage them to work together. But thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I think, is it okay to assume that the county council direction is to look at viable options to make the best possible use to provide for these two entities?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you, Mayor, and the council members, the town manager, for your giving the direction to your attorney to see if he can help the land grant and the VFW. And like I say, I think it'd be a good idea if we could work together, even if it's the same building, even if it has to be split in half or whatever. But I think the VFW do deserve a building, and I think the land grant is just do a building too, where we can conduct the business.
Sure. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Are you thinking of, because we have talked about just briefly different ideas. You talked about the acequias, which I think they need a depository for all their documentations, and I think a repository, I think is what it's called.
Depository, yeah,
Depository.
where they could bring in
And I know that
documents.
UNM was looking at creating such a facility within their facility at Clower campus. I don't know if that ever got off the ground, but
Apparently it hasn't, Mayor, because I've been very active with the acequia, and I've been very active and with the commission of the acequia, and Mr. Romero over there is also a commissioner of the acequia, and to my knowledge, I don't know that they've even discussed that issue, that, creating such a thing for us, have they, with you?
And I think to further your cause, I think that if you go for a legislative appropriation as the land grants of Taos County, rather than just La Serna, you may get a lot more bang from your buck, because a lot of land grants are facing your same situation, that they don't have a facility. And if this can be the destination for all land grants to huddle, so to speak, and have all your information gathered in one, because there's a lot of support at the legislature to support land grants. And I think combining a resource such as this, I don't know if this may not be the time, but I know that your priority is, of course, Cristobal de la Serna land grant, but we do have Cristobal, and we also have another one that falls within the municipal boundaries as well. So, they may be coming to us and say, well, where's ours? And where's our piece of property since we're in your municipality? So I think combining that effort with the acequias may be a good cause, and we may be getting a lot of money from the legislative appropriations for that.
I think you're right, Mayor, and we would definitely entertain that.
Sure, yeah, okay. Mr. Romero.
Mayor, council members, I also would like to thank you for listening to our things that we need. Right now, we are like the child without a country, with our family. We have to share the place up there in Llano with everybody.
Sure.
I'm sure we can share with BFW.
Sure.
If you guys consider one half and half.
Okay.
I'd like to thank everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Thank you
And
very much.
you did, I think you all did receive a lot of the emails I sent you in regards to our statute as to what makes us a subgovernmental entity, et cetera. Okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
thank you.
If I could
And
say
thank
one-
you so much.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
One thing real quick, as members of the La Serna Land Grant Board, I'd like to personally thank you for coming to the table with the town of Taos at the time. I wasn't on the city council at that time, but I did have a house for sale in the La Serna Land Grant, and so many factors depended on futures, and I know the land grant in Arroyo Hondo, where it affected a lot of families and individuals personally. So thank you for coming to the table with the town of Taos at the same point. And, I strive along with this council here to do everything we can to make that a viable option for you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you guys for being a big part of this community, and thank the VFW. And this is truly what community is all about, and working together, we can come to resolutions and accomplish things. So thank you guys.
Well, we're all taseños, I say.
That's right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Buenas
being here.
noches. Feliz Navidad.
Thank you. Thank you. Under matters from mayor and council, any other matters? Councilmember Peralta?
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez, also, thank you.
we received an email from Michael Trujillo from the Taos County wanting a letter of support for the Veterans Cemetery, and I'd just like to also have the council to consider the possibility of dedicating 25 acres that we have out by the landfill as a site for a veteran cemetery. I think it's a better location than what the county is looking at. It's more accessible, it's more visible than their site is, and I think that it would be a good use of that property as well if we consider that. But so I'm just throwing it out there for council consideration.
Okay, can you bring that, Oscar, to look at what specific land he's talking about, and what was the intent of that specific land?
Be glad to do that now. Of course, meanwhile, there would be a question of the letter of support that Michael Trujillo was talking about. Should then I draft just a general one and raise this issue or not?
I believe the question is going to be whether Taos County is going to host or going to be the location of a veteran cemetery. That's the question for the state in a general capacity, not whether it's in our property or theirs. I think that's going to be something that will just provide us an option. But I think that I need to make some personal calls to the governor rather than just a letter in their packet. I need to, I can hand deliver that letter on specifically supporting the county's intent to bring because I think it'll go a lot further if I personally deliver it.
Mayor, if I could, just to bring the council up to date, from the entrance to the landfill, the town owns 100 acres. And we bought it because it was part of the package in order to get the landfill land that we needed. We had to buy all of it or none. That was just the way they would sell it. And so we acquired that 100 acres, and we haven't had any use for it other than the lease that we have with Kit Carson for their propane tanks. And so one of the things I've offered to Kit Carson and to others is to use that for a wind farm. And they all said that it didn't have enough wind on it. Can't believe that, but that's what they said. So I'm just looking at it that we just, as a town, I don't think I've ever had any real use for it other than it was land for future use as industrial land. If the airport came into being, that could be a place that we could do an industrial park. So I'm just thinking that it's some of that land I think would be a much better visible location for a cemetery, for a veteran cemetery, than the land that the county's looking at, which is kind of low and it's out of the way. It's not on a thoroughfare, so it's not visible. It requires a road being built into it. Whereas this one, it's right on the highway. We could, as part of the upgrades to the airport, we could bring water over to that land because they need to have water for irrigation. So I think there's some opportunities there that make it a possible alternative to the county's offer.
Mr. Mayor, with regards to that, I think it'd be a good thing too, because much like the National Cemetery in Santa Fe, where you get a feeling of humbleness as you pass through there, and the fallen veterans that have gone before us. I think it would probably lend itself, much like Councilor Peralta said, this is out of the way. The proposed cemetery, this would be right on US 64, and alongside with our new proposed expansion of the airport, around Memorial Day, Veterans Day, whatnot. If that area was completely decorated with flags, it would be a sight to see, especially on a main highway. So I support that, Brian. If we can, Oscar,
You guys can bring that at a future meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
what options are entailed in
Yes,
that.
sir.
Councilmember
I'm
Beta.
familiar with the 38 or 50 acres that the county's looking at over on County Road 110 in the golf course area, and it's a good piece of land, but again, as Councilmember Peralta pointed out, it doesn't have a road to it yet, and it's basically in a residential neighborhood, and it's sort of hidden. US 64 location, I think, would be a much more viable location.
Great.
And it's certainly a very appropriate land use surrounding an airport.
Right. Yeah. Great. Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Gonzalez.
One last thing, Mr. Mayor, if we could get some recognition for the Taos High School football team who went to the semifinals of the state championship, and I wish we could have seen them in the finals, but it just didn't play out that way. But it's a huge accomplishment for these young men, and many are seniors, much like our youth counselor, and I think it'd be appropriate to give them a proper recognition with regards to their accomplishment as far as, not just their accomplishment as football players, but as good young stewards and men of our community.
Councilmember, when's our next meeting? Since the holidays are coming up, do you want to do a special meeting coming up?
I think it'd be probably good to do.
Just a reception setting?
Yeah, that would be good, maybe just right before, sometime before the holidays.
And we'll just have that as our only item, and we'll give
We
them
have
a...
a special council meeting coming up, right?
On the 12th. It's a bit late for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay, never mind.
Yeah, let's do one possibly next week, and check with the council, see what the times are appropriate, and prepare some certificates.
Well, and maybe we can do that, and I don't know, I know we did the run-along with the cross-country team, but maybe we can host them both at the same time.
Well, we did the presentation.
What we did for cross-country on that Thursday night, not only did they do the run-along from Kit Carson Park around the plaza to the gazebo, but we also presented plaques, and I presented the plaques.
So do we do them both together again?
Want to do a
I think
formal?
cross-country's done, and I think we need to highlight football now, because if you look at the football roster, Michael, what is it, 60, 70 players?
Yes.
It's quite a roster, so, and they ended up third in state, which is the first time ever for Taos High School football, so
Okay.
I think they deserve their own spotlight.
Well,
Great.
if they could have beaten Robinson again, they would be state champions.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be a
See
doubt,
what Robinson did to
without a doubt, yeah.
Great. All right, any other comments, questions? Just want to wish everyone a very, very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And all the staff and employees of the town of Taos. It's great to be in a very beautiful community in this time of weather and holidays.
Yep.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Brett. Michael, is that okay? Okay.